I forced the greatest villain to become my girlfriend. She refused. As the school's overlord, I sought out others to beat her every day. I kept beating her until she agreed. After I inherited all the memories of the school's overlord. At that moment, the villain had been beaten for half an hour straight. The system suddenly alerted me, Master, if you don't hurry over there to save her, in a moment when the protagonist appears, everything will become irredeemable. I had no choice but to step forward and tell the bloodthirsty youths to stop. Enough, no more beating. Wooden Grace was beaten until her body was covered in dust and dirt. Blood clung to the corners of her mouth. She glared at me with dark, brooding eyes. In that instant, I heard the system's notification sound. The villain's favorability 91. This villain was no ordinary foe. When her favorability toward me plummeted to 100, that would be the day I met my end. I crouched down. I pulled a tissue from my pocket and gently wiped her face. She, full of defiance, told me not to hit her face. What was this all about? Wooden Grace was no fool. This was a knot I had to forcefully untangle. And so I heard her favorability drop again to 92. This was truly dancing on the edge of a blade. I turned to the crowd beside me and said, "Get lost, all of you. I'd handle this myself. When I had time, I'd treat them to a meal." The villain's favorability 93. Was this even salvageable? Why did her favorability keep dropping? I began to panic. Could it be at this moment? Wooden Grace was already plotting to take me down. I held the tissue, too afraid to speak. I stared at Wooden Grace's unsteady swaying form, my brows furrowed. I quickly took 2 steps forward. As I drew near, Wooden Grace halted. Her voice dripped with disgust. "What more do you want?" I grabbed the hem of her shirt. My expression was pitiful, utterly devoid of pretense. I was genuinely terrified of Wooden Grace. I knew I was wrong. Wooden Grace shook my hand off, yet I stubbornly chased after her. Tilting my head, I asked, "Could you give me a chance to make amends?" Switching to emotional tactics now was I. "Don't you find this disgusting? If you truly want to make amends, then just vanish from my sight. Better yet, disappear forever." Wooden Grace's eyes burned with unmasked hatred. I wanted to say something more, but then I saw a few youths noticing the scene. One glance and I knew things were about to go south. The protagonist had officially arrived. Effort true, why are you bullying someone? I had no curiosity left in me. Mind your own business. The villain's favorability 96. Warning. The villain's favorability had plummeted to a catastrophic low. Prepare yourself. I hope you're ready for the worst-case scenario, Master. I gritted my teeth. Hearing this warning, I abruptly turned to stare at Wooden Grace, my face devoid of emotion. Forrest Subtle was flushed red by my words. Everyone feared I'd do something to Wooden Grace. They immediately stepped between us, spreading their arms like a mother hen shielding her chick. I don't know what happened between you and Grace, but with me here, you won't lay a finger on her again. The villain's favorability 97. The villain's favorability 98. The villain's favorability 99. Enough. These words weren't just for the incessantly nagging system, but also for Forrest Subtle, who wouldn't shut up. I wasn't some naive fool. This was my first time tackling an Shrank mission, only to run into Wooden Grace, a stubborn one. Call it my bad luck. At worst, I'd fail the mission and be sent to the primal system, climbing from the very bottom bit by bit. It's not like I hadn't been reset before. If I got torn apart by Wooden Grace in a month, so what? Back when I was cannon fodder, what kind of death hadn't I experienced? I had my pride too. Want to trample over me, to boost favorability with my target. Not a chance. Having made up my mind, I tore off the mask. I didn't care about the consequences. I casually grabbed Forrest Subtle and shoved him aside. Wooden Grace bit her lip hard. She glanced at Forrest Subtle stumbling from the push. Forrest Subtle looked like he was about to fall. His eyes were deep and dangerous. I sneered at Forrest Subtle with disdain. With a cold laugh, I said, "Think you can control me? How I toy with her is my business. I'll bully her for a lifetime if I want. You and I aren't even from the same school. I beat her at school and you think you can stop me? If you want to protect her, you'd better have the skills. Anyone can talk big. And I'll say this as long as I'm here. No one touches a single hair on Wooden Grace's head. After my long tirade, Wooden Grace's favorability hit rock bottom. But seeing Forrest Subtle's horrified expression, I felt an inexplicable thrill. My original mission was to save the villain. Now though, I felt like I was the one becoming the fallen villain. I lowered my gaze to Wooden Grace, not caring what she thought, and dragged her away. Forrest Subtle blocked me again, looking at Wooden Grace with concern. Panting, he said, "Speak. What will it take for you to let Wooden Grace go?" Let her go. I wanted to let go, but would the system let me? Right now, I was just meat on the chopping block, waiting for Wooden Grace to meticulously plan and send me to my doom. I snarled viciously, "In your dreams. Even if I die, you'll drag Wooden Grace down with me." I shoved Forrest Subtle hard. Unable to control my strength, she fell to the ground. Wooden Grace froze mid-step. She tried to pull her hand free from mine. I tightened my grip. With a smile devoid of warmth, I lowered my voice and threatened, "You like her, don't you?" Wooden Grace's body trembled. That reaction wasn't surprising. After all, in the original setup, Wooden Grace was the secondary female lead in Forrest Subtle's life, madly in love with her. I smirked and continued, "Her father's company has dealings with mine, but that tiny little company, my father could crush it with a single finger. If you want her to suffer alongside you, you're welcome to keep following me." In that moment, Wooden Grace's eyes were sharp as knives, as if she could tear me apart on the spot. Out of Forrest Subtle's sight, I stood by the road calling for my fanless driver. Wooden Grace clutched her school bag. Her voice quivered as she asked, "Can I go now?" Without thinking, I refused outright. "You're not exactly obedient, are you? Good thing I found your weakness. You don't want someone to suffer because of you, right?" Classmate Wooden Grace furrowed her brow tightly. Her voice hoarse, she said, "Effort true. How can you be so vicious? I don't even know Forrest Subtle. I don't like her either. You can't threaten me." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? Fine then. I'll call my father right now. I've been annoyed with Forrest Subtle for a while. If you don't like her either, then there's nothing to worry about." Seeing me actually about to make the call, Wooden Grace hurriedly grabbed my hand. Her whole body shook uncontrollably. Her hoarse voice asked, "What do you want exactly? What's so special about me that you keep clinging to me? You like this face of mine, don't you?" Wooden Grace, as if driven mad, began clawing at her own face. I quickly stopped her, but Wooden Grace pushed me away, saying, "I'll ruin this face. Then will you let me go?" Wooden Grace was truly insane. I knew this from the start, but I'd never felt it so viscerally. I asked her, "What if I said I liked who you are? Would you kill yourself?" Wooden Grace stared at me for a long time before speaking. "If that's what you want." I immediately grabbed her hand. Resolutely, I said, "Don't you dare think about it. If you dare kill yourself in front of me, after you're gone, I'll go torment your mother." Wooden Grace had a weakness. Her greatest weakness was her mother. Her legs gave way, nearly collapsing to her knees. Her voice pleaded, "Effort true. Please stop causing chaos. I'm begging you." The driver pulled up. My heart churned like a stormy sea, but I kept my face cold and unreadable. No one could see through my thoughts. I shoved Wooden Grace into the back seat. Calmly, I ordered the driver to River City Hospital. "Call my personal doctor." Wooden Grace didn't say a word the entire ride. Her face pale as death, she stared out the window. I rubbed my chin. This wasn't quite aligning with my original plan to win over Wooden Grace. I recalled the words I'd just spoken. They were truly too cruel, but I had no other choice. If the mission failed, at worst I'd be reset. But if the target I was meant to win over died, I'd be deemed a failure at protecting her. My consciousness would be erased entirely. Without consciousness, I'd be nothing but a walking corpse. I shuddered. In my mind, I quietly asked the system, "I'm done for, aren't I?" The system answered honestly, "You've been pretty awful true. But since you're going to die anyway, you've got 1 month left. Try a bit harder." I didn't want to try anymore. I just wanted to be a salted fish. I sprawled out in the car, silently lamenting. Why am I bearing the original host's mistakes? For the next mission assignment, can you give me an innocent villain to win over? I handed Wooden Grace to my personal doctor. I curled up on a long bench, clutching Wooden Grace's tattered school bag. That bagwo knew how long it had been used. The bottom even had patches sewn on. In truth, Wooden Grace was quite pitiable. The chairman of Wood Corporation, Wood Success, years ago for the sake of profit, abandoned his true girlfriend to marry a wealthy heiress. Back then he had no idea his girlfriend, Leaf Pure, was pregnant. Leaf Pure, heartbroken for the unborn child in her womb, carried the pregnancy for 10 months and gave birth to Wooden Grace. She struggled alone to raise her. Who could have guessed that the heiress somehow caught wind of it? When she met with Success, she discovered Wooden Grace, his illegitimate daughter, grown so big. She acted with ruthless cruelty. Wooden Grace grew up with her mother and moved to River City, hoping to start a new life. But then she ran into the original host, a tyrant. She never had a moment's peace. Just as I was pondering what to do next, my personal Dr. Pearl Snow came out with the test results. Her expression wasn't good, fearing the others had been too rough and caused serious harm. I had Wooden Grace undergo a full examination. Seeing Pearl Snow's grim face, I knew something was wrong. Pearl Snow handed me the results. She explained her body is covered in new and old wounds. Her ribs were fractured before. They don't even seem fully healed. Her body is very weak. She's severely malnourished. Whose child is this? Does she not even get enough to eat? How badly has she been hurt? I didn't speak. Pearl Snow asked what's with the wounds on her. I didn't dare answer. Pearl Snow asked again, is she your classmate? I pursed my lips, lowered my head, and thanked Pearl Snow. Thank you, Dr. Pearl. Can I take her now? Pearl Snow glanced at her watch. It'll give her another for drip. It'll take about an hour to finish. Pearl Snow looked me over. Frowning, she said, effort true. I know your family situation has affected you greatly, but I hope you don't fall too far. You're about to take the college entrance exams. I effort one nodded and said I understood. The sky outside had turned pitch black when I brought in a bowl of plain porridge I'd bought outside. Wooden Grace was lying on the hospital bed, hooked to and for. The wounds on her face and body had been treated. Her forehead and the corners of her eyes were covered in bandages. She looked almost comical. I carefully approached, placed the porridge on the table, and sat obediently beside her. I spoke. I thought things over today. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. My original intention was just to get you to look at me a few more times, but I couldn't overcome the disgusting things the original host did. Frustrated, I scratched my hair and said, forget it. I give up on explaining. Turning to her, I said, Dr. Pearl said your stomach isn't good. Drink some porridge. It'll be good for your stomach. I opened the lid of the porridge and pushed it toward her. Wooden Grace laughed, saying mockingly, is this a slap followed by a piece of candy? Do you think it'll be grateful to you? I shook my head, giving up entirely. Just pretend I suddenly found my conscience. You hating me is only right. Keep hating me, if given up anyway. Wooden Grace wasn't swayed in the slightest by my words. I lowered my head and apologized. I won't let anyone beat you anymore. I know you hate me. I know you want me gone forever. But can we negotiate a little? I cautiously asked. If just hypothetically, you really want to do something to me, could you use gentler methods? I'm afraid of pain. In the original story, my death had no process described. But just looking at the outcome, I knew it was gruesome. Killed and dismembered, torn into 8 pieces. Wooden Grace would find pleasure in tormenting me, then walk a path of no return. This mission was utterly absurd. I clenched my fist, hearing the system beep, Master. Why are you saying these things? What if you remind her? Shut up, I'm gambling. I was betting that by exposing Wooden Grace's thoughts, she'd have fewer such ideas. Wooden Grace turned her face away. The coldness in her eyes hadn't softened. I don't understand what you're talking about. Scratching my hair, if you don't get it, that's fine. Even knowing Wooden Grace was pretending, I had to play my part fully. In the end, Wooden Grace didn't touch the porridge. After the 4 was removed, she walked straight out. I followed behind her, seeing her head down the main road toward home. I asked, stunned, where are you going? Wooden Grace turned and shot me a glance. I gritted my teeth and said, let me take you home. Wouldn't Grace coldly replied, "No need. I can take the bus." I wanted to say more, but thinking of the pride ingrained in Wouldn't Grace's very bones, I shut my mouth. I only said I'll go with you. I stood awkwardly, insisting on walking beside Wouldn't Grace, head down dejected. At the bus stop, I kicked a few small pebbles. Wouldn't Grace lowered her head. She could see my short, messy hair. Back then, she had felt a flicker of fondness for this person. Thinking of that, Wouldn't Grace despised herself from the depths of her heart. Back when she first transferred to the school, she had no uniform. The clothes she wore were washed to the point of fading. Her entire being radiated poverty. Second High was the best school in River City, naturally tinged with an air of privilege. She had nothing to boast about. Transferred midterm, she was placed in the worst class. But that class was also a gathering place for the most delinquent students. They spoke of her with lofty, condescending tones. Only I approached with a smile to strike up a conversation. Back then, she thought it was a kind smile. She never expected it was all part of a scheme. Noticing Wouldn't Grace looking at me, I hesitated for a moment. Raising my head, I frowned in confusion. Wouldn't Grace pursed her lips and said, "You want me to be your girlfriend? And then what do you want to take from me?" The girl suddenly pressed closer to me. The distance between us shrank. If Wouldn't Grace had a knife, she could easily slit my throat. I touched my nose, nervously saying I don't want to take anything besides her frail body. Wouldn't Grace had that beautiful face. She truly had nothing else. Wouldn't Grace laughed sarcastically. "So you just want to toy with me? No need to play these useless tricks. You want me to be your girlfriend? Fine, I'll do it." I almost thought I was hallucinating. The bus slowly pulled up in front of me. Wouldn't Grace stepped onto it. I hesitated for a moment, uncertainly following, asking, "Sorry, what did you just say?" That was a bit shocking, but I was eager for an answer. Wouldn't Grace pulled the corner of her mouth and said, "I said, you've got me now. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Are you satisfied this time?" Wouldn't Grace sat in a single seat near the front. There were no empty seats around. I had to hold the handrail standing beside her. I asked the system in my mind, "Something's off with this plot." The system replied, "Indeed." I asked again, "What's her favorability toward me?" The system said, "Villain's favorability 100. Hearing that despairing answer, I frowned. "Then what does she want?" The system immediately said to view the target's inner thoughts. It only costs 100 accumulated points. I refused outright. Not for any other reason, but my points were all spent on unlocking this shrank mission, with the mission making no progress. I was dirt poor. Being in a relationship with someone who harbors deep hatred for you. What's that like? I watched Wouldn't Grace limp toward the old building, my heart an empty void. In the original story, Wouldn't Grace was indeed a good person during this time, for no other reason than two. First, the college entrance exams were looming, and she wanted to get into an excellent school to change her fate. Second, so that after killing me, no one would suspect her. But she never intended to entangle herself with me, fearing complications. Wouldn't Grace's words had completely deviated from the main storyline. I was a bit flustered. I gritted my teeth, recklessly charging forward. If I couldn't figure it out, I'd ask directly. I was a dead man walking anyway. I meant to be tactful, to probe Wouldn't Grace's thoughts. But the moment I opened my mouth, I wanted to strangle myself. Because I said, "Didn't you say you'd rather die than be with me? Why the change of heart?" Wouldn't Grace shot me a cold glance, not saying a word, continuing forward. I hurriedly tried to backtrack. What I meant was, Wouldn't Grace suddenly shoved me hard against a street lamp pole. Her voice, "I see, what exactly do you want?" Her hand gripped my collar tightly, her voice thick with disgust. I said, "I'd be your girlfriend. I'm doing it, what more do you want?" Effort true, you truly make me sick to my core. Her grip tightened. I wasn't weak, but being choked, I couldn't help but wince. I looked up at her, my expression a bit dark. Wouldn't Grace never hid her disgust for me, but seeing my rare expression, she suddenly seemed a bit flustered. I lowered my voice, "Can you let me go? I told you, I don't like being treated like this." Wouldn't Grace released her grip. I unexpectedly spoke up. 1 month left. I'll make it up to you. After saying that, I turned and walked away. Too terrifying. Just now, Wooden Grace's eyes. They were inches away from strangling me. Fine, I'd take it one step at a time. Wooden Grace, upon returning home, tried to slip into her room. She didn't want her overworked mother to worrying about her anymore. But fate wasn't kind. As she entered, she saw her mother clutching a cross-stitch frame, sitting under dim lamplight, wearing reading glasses, her fingers tirelessly weaving through the fabric. Wooden Grace gripped the corner of her school bag tightly. Leaf Pure looked up briefly, her needle accidentally pricking her finger. She hissed in pain, quickly sucking the blood from the wound. Standing, she asked, "Did you get into a fight again?" Wooden Grace pursed her lips, lowering her eyes. Leaf Pure hurriedly checked her wounds, heartbroken beyond measure. She didn't dare make promises, weakly saying, "What should we do? Tomorrow I'll talk to your teacher. With the college entrance exams coming, this can't go on." Wooden Grace picked up her school bag, saying flatly, "No need. I can handle it. It's late, you should sleep, Mom." Leaf Pure froze, lowering her head, struggling to ask Grace, "Do you hate me?" Wooden Grace's chest heaved. To say she didn't hate would be impossible, but now her eyes held rare tenderness. "Don't overthink, Mom. I'm going to do my homework." Leaf Pure sighed, rubbing her aching eyes, saying, "You must be hungry. There's food in the kitchen. Warm it up yourself." "I'm a bit busy." Wooden Grace paused, warming up some buns. In the end, she said nothing. She didn't rush to start her homework, but opened her desk drawer and took out a knife. That knife symbolized humiliation, yet also the drive pushing her forward. Back then, she was still young. Her mother took her to Dragon City to make a living, running a small vegetable stall alone. Leaf Pure in her youth was truly beautiful. Some kids envied her for having such a pretty mother. She used to be proud of it, until she later realized beauty wasn't always something to boast about. It could be the root of disaster. When she was in elementary school, Wooden Grace came home to find a thug forcing himself on her mother. She screamed and cried, frenziedly hitting and pounding, finally kneeling and begging him to let her mother go. But the man simply lifted her with one hand and threw her out, arrogant beyond measure. Before slamming the door shut, he tossed her this knife, saying, "Little girl, you're not strong enough yet. If you want to kill me, use this." Pain surged in Wooden Grace's eyes, snapping her out of her memories. Expressionless, she stared at the knife, then tucked it into her school bag. She was done with this kind of life. Meanwhile, on the other side, I lay on my spacious bed, rolling over twice. Transmigrating as a rich kid was nice. Even if my father didn't care and my mother didn't love me, what did that matter? Money was enough. In any world, money was the ultimate truth. As I was musing, a warning blared in my mind. I jolted upright. The system said, "Alert. The target's favorability has broken past -1,000. A key item has appeared. The original storyline is starting to deviate. Master, please note the deviation." What kind of deviation? What was this key item? Anything that didn't align with the world's original plot would cause the storyline to veer off course. I was no novice. I was all too familiar with this situation, understanding the system's meaning. A new plotline was about to unfold, one that would powerfully influence the predestined path of the target. Just moments ago, I thought there was no hope, and now the target was stirring up chaos again. The system hurriedly displayed an image, showing only the shape of the key item, a spring-loaded pen with its cap off. A note on it marked it as one of the main tools to kill me. My face darkened. This thing had already appeared. It seemed my death was coming sooner than expected. I irritably ruffled my hair. I knew it wouldn't. Grace suddenly agreeing to be my girlfriend was too strange, so she couldn't hold back anymore. If I were the original host, hearing Wooden Grace's answer would have made me ecstatic, lowering my guard. Didn't that give her the perfect chance to strike? I spent the night in a foul mood, determined to appease the villain and struggle a bit longer. I bought breakfast for 2 on my way. Senior year was hectic. Morning study started at 6:30. Wooden Grace, feeling sorry for her mother and with no money at home, hadn't eaten breakfast in all 3 years of high school. I planned to take the emotional route, but I wasn't sure if it would still work on her. The original host was a terrible student, never attending morning study. When I walked in, the whole class couldn't believe their eyes. Wouldn't Grace heard the noise but didn't look up, sitting in the back row engrossed in her homework. I passed by her, secretly slipping the breakfast into her desk drawer, then sat 3 rows away. Wouldn't Grace frowned, looking down at the fragrant soy milk and 3 greasy buns. From the plastic bag, she peeled off a sticky note, scrawled on it, "Breakfast for you, enjoy." Expressionless, she crumpled the note and tossed it into the trash. She wasn't hungry to begin with, but the aroma made her stomach growl incessantly. For 2 years, she had gone hungry more often than not, causing her stomach to ache in spasms. She glanced up, seeing the tyrant laughing and joking with the delinquent youths. Ignoring herself, she lowered her head, afraid others would notice, and took a sip of the soy milk through the straw. The soy milk mixed with peanuts and sugar was surprisingly delicious. I, catching Wooden Grace's actions out of the corner of my eye, finally breathed a sigh of relief. I hurriedly told the system to check her favorability. The result: Villain's favorability 100. She ate my food and still treated me so cruelly. I snapped at the system. "Forget it, system. I don't want to check anymore. Block this function for me, lest I get furious every day. Favorability my foot. Let it be." Meanwhile, Wooden Grace restrained herself, eating only 1 bun, carefully storing the other 2 in her desk drawer. She planned to bring them home for her mother to try. At that moment, I don't know what I said to the others, but I suddenly grabbed my bag and headed toward her. Wooden Grace's body stiffened. I pulled a chair next to her and sat down, taking out a clean worksheet and placing it on the desk. My eyes held a hint of hope. "Girlfriend, can I copy your homework?" Wooden Grace said seriously. "Didn't you never do homework before?" I scratched my head, grinning. "So you've been paying attention to me?" Wooden Grace's face turned cold, sneering. "You're overthinking it. Who doesn't know you've never done homework? Your transcript's in the negative. If not for your father, you have been expelled long ago." The corners of my mouth twitched uncontrollably, almost laughing from anger. "Fine, if you want, let me copy. I'll do it myself." I turned my head, visibly annoyed, staring at the worksheet, as if I really intended to do it myself. Wooden Grace was a bit surprised. She'd said similar things before, and back then I'd grab her by the collar, arrogantly saying, "So what if I don't study? I have a good father. Unlike you with nothing. Burying yourself in books like your life depends on it. Pathetic pauper." I didn't know what Wooden Grace was thinking. Having transmigrated through countless worlds, I dreaded school setting plots the most, because I genuinely had no interest in studying. I looked at the math worksheet, filling in whatever looked right. If I didn't understand, I scribbled a random number. Others took an hour to complete a worksheet. I doodled through one in 5 minutes. Wooden Grace frowned. Not a single answer on that sheet was correct. I noticed her sneaking a glance and raised an eyebrow. A bit smug. "What do you think? My speed's pretty impressive, right? This homework isn't even that hard." Wooden Grace said nothing, only letting out a cold, mocking laugh. Fine, I wouldn't stoop to her level. Morning study ended. I pulled out the same breakfast as Wooden Grace's, spreading it out on the desk. Wooden Grace struggled to look away, forcing herself to focus on her work. Soon after, she saw my hand holding a bun, thrusting it toward her face. I held a tissue in my other hand, casually saying, "I can't finish this. Help me eat it." Without waiting for her reaction, I stuffed it into her mouth as she opened it to speak, then leaned back in my chair, smug. Seeing Wooden Grace's haunted expression, if she weren't so unhinged, her personality was actually quite interesting. Wooden Grace ate with a certain elegance, deliberate and refined. She was meant to be a good person. At that moment, a girl in a loosely worn uniform walked up to me, saying, "Effort true. Why'd you come so early today?" River Jade Charm glanced at Wooden Grace, who was looking down, frowning slightly, saying with some displeasure, "Why are you sitting here? Isn't it dirty?" Her words didn't faze Wooden Grace, but my heart skipped a beat. I carefully glanced at Wooden Grace, my mouth retorting, "Dirty? Where is it dirty? Look, I'll wipe it clean." River Jade Charm laughed once, glancing at Wooden Grace, saying to me tired of playing hurry back. I froze for a second. Then River Jade Charm placed a bubble tea with jelly and pudding in front of me. Instinctively, I said thanks. River Jade Charm raised an eyebrow, a bit surprised. What's wrong with you, idiot? I flared up. This person was the one with issues, cursing me out of nowhere. River Jade Charm didn't say more, tossing her bag down and asking, "Wanna try my new motorcycle?" I shook my head repeatedly, pulling Wooden Grace's worksheet, lying through my teeth. I want to study properly with my girlfriend from now on. River Jade Charm lost all patience, sneering, "Did you take the wrong meds this morning? Stop joking, let's go. The teacher's coming soon. You won't be laughing then." I said earnestly, "I'm not joking. I really want to turn over a new leaf. My girlfriend's a top student. I want to get into the same university as her." Hearing me go on about my girlfriend, River Jade Charm slammed the desk. "Stop messing around. Girlfriend, she's just a toy. Is she even worthy? Are your eyes blind or is your brain waterlogged? Yesterday you had people beat her, now you're playing the good guy. Enough, let's go." Listening to her rant, my left eyelid twitched uncontrollably. Wooden Grace's lips curled into a mocking smile. I felt my head swell twice its size. I gritted my teeth. "I'm serious about her being my girlfriend. She's not a toy. I'm serious. I'm done hanging out with you all. What happened yesterday? Bullying her was my mistake. I've changed. From now on, don't cause her any trouble." Wooden Grace listened to my every word, her eyes gradually darkening. River Jade Charm was furious, sneering, "Effort, true, you're something else. Others might not know, but don't I know what you are?" She turned, glaring sharply at Wooden Grace, asking, "What did you say to him?" Seeing Wooden Grace ignore her, River Jade Charm reached out to slap her face. "I'm talking to you." Wooden Grace's anger flared instantly. Clenching her fists, she said, "You're asking me. Do I have to answer?" River Jade Charm snapped, "Damn it. You don't want to live, do you?" She grabbed Wooden Grace's collar, yanking her to her feet. The normal students around held their breath, while the usual troublemakers started clearing desks to watch the show, some even whistling provocatively. I slapped River Jade Charm's hand away, coldly saying, "Let go." River Jade Charm had never seen me like this, knowing I was truly angry. What was this I used to brag to them daily, saying I'd trick Wooden Grace into being my servant, completely breaking her pride? Now I was flipping sides. Seeing River Jade Charm not reacting, I gritted my teeth. I said, "Let go." I forcefully pulled her hand away, dragging Wooden Grace behind me. Frowning, I said, "This has nothing to do with her. It's all my choice." River Jade Charm's face darkened, letting out a cold laugh. She viciously kicked a desk. I couldn't dodge in time and it hit my side. I sucked in a sharp breath. River Jade Charm didn't go joyriding either, sitting down a few seats to our left. The lackeys who usually trailed me were also confused. "Brother One, you're acting weird today." My side felt like it was killing me. Gritting my teeth, I yelled, "Get lost." The crowd dispersed. Only then did I clutch my side in pain and sit down. When I lifted my shirt, I saw the spot where the desk hit had turned red. That was a heavy blow. Wooden Grace kept watching my movements, seeing my body stiffen, my hand still rubbing my side. She suddenly yanked my shirt down, her face grim, saying, "What are you lifting it for?" I muttered quietly, "It hurts." Wooden Grace pursed her lips, "Serves you right." I thought if I let my temper loose, I could take on Wooden Grace right then and there. She continued, "Why did you get involved?" I glared. "She was going to hit you." Wooden Grace sneered as if she hasn't hit me before, saying that her eyes stayed fixed on me. I felt guilty, my face flushing, then lowered my voice. I said, "Yesterday, only I get to bully you. If they hit you, that's not allowed." Wooden Grace pulled out a new worksheet, coldly saying, "Then why turn against them?" I bit my lip. I didn't want to hear what they were saying. Wooden Grace didn't hold back. "They said nothing you haven't said before. You're all the same." Every word from her was sharp, and the worst part was I couldn't argue back. I twisted the hem of my uniform, muttering, "I'm different from them. I really want to turn over a new leaf." Wooden Grace let out a low hum from her throat. River Jade Charm was right. "You should wake up." I couldn't take it anymore. What am I doing all this for? How can you talk about me like that? I'm trying to be good to you, and you're acting superior. Wooden Grace turned and glanced at me. What are you doing this for? I froze, unsure how to respond. I withdrew my gaze, saying this feels a bit more normal. I couldn't hold back. That's because you're sick. After snapping that, I felt unbearably frustrated. The bubble tea on the desk was an eyesore. I grabbed it and threw it into the trash. Wooden Grace's pen spun rapidly, her tone cryptic. Why not drink it? She was so kind to give it to you. I slumped, head down, not drinking. I'm full of anger too. Aside from that brief interruption, the class passed uneventfully. The teacher didn't care where I sat, since I never studied anyway. Seeing I wasn't bothering Wooden Grace beside me, the teacher paid no extra attention. Feeling bored, I slumped on the desk, opening the system interface in my mind. After a while, I got so sleepy I started dozing off. Suddenly, the class erupted in noise. I looked up, rubbing my eyes. An inspection team had arrived. The school periodically checks students' bags, especially in our class, with extra scrutiny. Knives, phones, novels, anything forbidden. If caught would mean calling parents. I didn't care. Handing my phone to the teacher, they wouldn't dare take it. I didn't have anything else. When the inspection team swooped in, I stood up, automatically, obediently, waiting to be checked. Turning, I saw Wooden Grace not moving. I patted her shoulder, reminding her teachers checking bags. Wooden Grace still didn't budge. I was a bit puzzled. Her expression didn't look good. The teacher reached the back row. I handed over my bag. Teacher Zhang flipped through it, then checked Wooden Grace's bag. I put my books down and sat back in my chair. Before my seat could even warm up, I heard the teacher yell from the front. What is this? Wooden Grace's face was expressionless. The homeroom teacher, hearing the commotion, rushed over, about to explain. She saw the item and didn't dare speak. The inspecting teacher shouted, "Why did you bring this to school? What's your name?" Teacher Zhang fired off questions. I immediately understood. So this was the plot deviation. If it were rich delinquents like us, getting caught with contraband would be no big deal. But it was Wooden Grace who got caught. This could mean expulsion. Wooden Grace didn't explain why she brought it to school. Teacher Zhang was furious, seeing her only give her name. She prepared to follow the teacher. I stood up, leaning on the desk. Teacher Zhang frowned. What's the matter? I glanced at Wooden Grace, not sure if she'd given up or was scared. Taking a deep breath, I said she didn't know the knife was in her bag. Wooden Grace looked up at me, her eyes complex. I pursed my lips. Continuing, I put the knife there. The room buzzed with whispers. The inspecting teacher glared. What do you mean? I swallowed hard. The fear of facing a teacher was etched deep in my bones. But what could I do? If Wooden Grace got expelled from here, her life wouldn't follow its original path. If that happened, the plot challenge I faced would be an unknown. I hated unclear missions, as I thought of a way to handle it. Teacher Zhang snapped, "You come with her. To the office, both of you." I walked side by side with Wooden Grace, lowering my voice. No matter what the teacher asks later, just say you don't know anything. Got it? Wooden Grace firmly replied. I put it there. I nearly lost it. Don't talk nonsense. This could get you expelled. Wooden Grace didn't back down. It was me. I grabbed her uniform in frustration, about to say something, when the teacher noticed our actions, angrily shouting, "No funny business." I quickly pulled my hand back, throwing out, "Remember what I said." I straightened up and followed the teacher to the office. The homeroom teacher asked, "Speak. What's going on?" Fearing Wooden Grace would answer, I cut in first. Like I said in class, I put the knife there. Teacher Zhang didn't believe it, asking for the reason. I said I wanted to threaten her. Teacher Zhang frowned. My bad reputation was well known among the faculty. He was a very upright man. Slamming the desk, effort, "True, you've got some nerve. What were you threatening her about?" I was dressed neatly but still a bit embarrassed. But at this point, I could only say threatening her to be my girlfriend. Teacher Zhang, the grade director, heard this and immediately decided to call my parents. He didn't bother confirming with Wooden Grace. Wooden Grace was a top student, well behaved. She couldn't have done this. But I was different. The suspicion around me was so strong no one doubted it. Teacher Zhang told Wooden Grace to leave. Seeing her not moving, I anxiously pushed her toward the door. Then, in front of the other teachers in the office, Teacher Zhang tore into me, calling me societal scum shameless. I took it all. My father, Effort Pure, didn't know the full story. Arriving, he got a brief rundown and slapped me hard across the face. No mercy at all. Half my face swelled instantly. He kept scolding, "Look at what you've done. I'm so disappointed in you. Bullying a classmate and bringing a knife. Today I'm dragging you out of this school. Tomorrow I have to bail you out of the police station. You don't even look like a student. Have I spoiled you too much? Making you think you're above everything?" I gritted my teeth, swallowing the blood in my mouth. My voice low spoiled me. "You don't even care about me, what's spoiling?" His anger exploded. "What kind of talk is that?" I stood tall, defiant. "Am I wrong? All you do these days is revolve around that homewrecker who ruined my mother jewel tripod. Or pamper that cheap kid who might not even be yours. Do you even remember me, your son, enough to spoil me? How many times have you seen me in the last 2 years? Do you even know what class I'm in?" Hearing me say that, my father raised his left hand to slap me again. I stood straight, ready for it, sneering, "Go ahead, hit me. Best if you kill me so in the afterlife Mom can see clearly." As the father-son clash grew fiercer, Teacher Zhang jumped in to stop it, pushing me out of the office. I lowered my head, holding back tears, not from sadness, but because it really hurt. A shadow fell before me. I looked up, seeing Wooden Grace's slender figure standing there. I quickly wiped my face with the back of my hand, my voice hoarse. "Why haven't you left?" Wooden Grace pursed her pale lips, asking, "Why did you say that to the teacher?" I was already furious from Effort Pure, and facing Wooden Grace, I didn't back down. My voice firm. "I'm just that way. You want to use this to get expelled by the teacher. I won't allow it. Don't even think about escaping me. Don't even dare to think it." Wooden Grace's eyes flickered. It was unclear what mood she was in. She mocked softly, crying and arguing. I clenched my fists, struggling to hold back tears. Then I realized something even worse. Effort Pure had frozen my bank card. Compared to being slapped, the force of this blow made me even angrier. But I didn't feel I'd done anything wrong. Whether it was the old me or the me now, Effort Pure could say he hadn't fulfilled even the slightest duty of a father. Aside from giving money, he offered nothing. Now even the money was gone. I punched the wall, gritting my teeth. It's over. I'm completely broke now. Wooden Grace flinched at my sudden action. She took a crumpled tissue from her bag. Handing it over, she whispered, "Don't do that." I grew even more irritated. Snatching the tissue, I wiped my face. Wooden Grace said softly, "If you want to cry, go outside. Crying here disturbs my studying." I nearly laughed from sheer frustration. The target of my mission had not a shred of gentleness. I suppressed my anger. My jaw clenched tight. I looked as though I'd suffered a grave injustice. Wooden Grace asked a question. She seemed slightly shaken by her own words. "No, no, I am the villain. Seeing me like this, she should be pleased." I calmed myself down. Turning, I listed the villa I was living in for sale. I put the house up online at a dirt cheap price. This house was bought by Effort Pure when I was 16, perhaps not wanting me, the burdensome child, to disturb his new family. He packed me off and threw me out. It was exactly noon. Students were pressed for time. Most rushed to the cafeteria for a meal. I had angered River Jade Charm, though I had enough money in WeChat for a few days. I didn't want to eat alone, so I stubbornly followed Wooden Grace. I was like a homeless dog. Wooden Grace was clearly annoyed with me. Turning, she glared and asked, "What are you doing?" My face still bore wounds. Pretending to be casual, I said, "I want to eat with my girlfriend." "Is that wrong too?" Wooden Grace only then remembered. Last night, in a moment of impulse, she had agreed. She pursed her lips and said, "I'm not eating." I raised an eyebrow, "But I'm hungry." Wooden Grace's slender fingers pointed toward the cafeteria, signaling me to go on my own. I stubbornly turned my head. "I'm not going." Wooden Grace stopped bothering with me. She turned and headed to the convenience store. She bought a 2 yuan loaf of bread. Her mother gave her 10 yuan a day, but she wanted to save money. I stood there watching her prepare to eat that thing, thinking of what Dr. Pearl Snow had said that day. I strode forward quickly, grabbing Wooden Grace's wrist. I pulled her outside. Wooden Grace, a bit annoyed, yanked her hand back. Coldly she asked, "Effort true, what do you want?" I didn't turn back, saying to eat. I dragged her out of the school gate. My eyes scanned the roadside stalls. I spotted a cheap spicy noodle shop. I wanted to eat something better too, but considering Wooden Grace's sensitive pride, I chose the best within reach. What I didn't expect was running into Forrest Subtle there. Forrest Subtle arrived with friends, laughing and chatting as they entered the noodle shop. He spotted Wooden Grace at a glance. Surprised, he said, "Grace, you're eating here too?" Forrest Subtle noticed the bandages on her face. Frowning, he continued, "Effort true is outrageous. How could he do that? Are you okay? Did he bother you again last night?" I stood not far from Wooden Grace, with my back to them, choosing dishes, hearing these hypocritical words. Turning like a demon, advance. "What are you saying about me behind my back to my girlfriend? Caught in the act." Forrest Suttle's expression turned ugly. I pressed on and calling her Grace. "Are you that close to her?" Fuming, I slammed a bowl of noodles on the counter. One hand pulled Wooden Grace. The other scanned the payment, saying, "Let's go." Ignoring him, Wooden Grace's expression was hard to read, as if she was thinking something. I pulled her out of the shop, paying no mind to the curious stares of Forrest Suttle's friends. Forrest Subtle, like a persistent ghost, chased after us. "Effort true, you have money and power. Why must you keep making things hard for Wooden Grace? She's already pitiful enough. Can you let her go?" I raised an eyebrow. Seeing Wooden Grace's face darken, I felt a thrill as if struck on the head, because Wooden Grace hated most when others called her pitiful. I feigned innocence, saying, "If never thought Wooden Grace was pitiful. Making things hard. You're overthinking it. We're seriously in love. Isn't that right, Grace?" I smoothly slid my hand down to Wooden Grace's, forcing her to interlock fingers with mine. Wooden Grace's body stiffened. I let out a cold snort. I directly pulled her to find a good seat, and cheerfully bought 2 bottles of water. I handed a bottle over, boldly saying, "Open the cap for me," because I noticed Forrest Subtle watching us. Wooden Grace glanced over, saying for no reason, "Don't you have hands?" Though she said that, she still took the bottle and opened it for me, then pushed it back. I acted carefree, whining, "My face hurts, I can't open it." Wooden Grace fell silent. I continued, "The food hasn't come yet. Share half your bread with me." Wooden Grace frowned, asking why. I pouted. "What, in treating you to a meal, shouldn't you return the favor? You're so stingy. You won't even share a piece of bread with me." Wooden Grace's expression shifted, still stubborn, saying, "I never said I wanted your meal." I crossed my arms, mocking. So Wooden Grace is too stingy to share her bread. She really has no way with me. In the end, she threw the bread at me. I opened the bread, breaking it in half from the middle. Each of us took a piece. Just then the owner called our number. I looked at the small slip in my hand, crisply responding, and jogged to pick it up. Wooden Grace's eyes never left me. She felt her teeth ache. The old me was too easy to understand. Just an arrogant rich kid, with money to throw around. A little thug who didn't care about others' lives. Now it was as if I'd suddenly awakened. My whole being seemed to glow. I didn't know what I was saying to the owner, laughing heartily and joyfully. Wooden Grace pushed her tongue against her molar. Her throat moved slightly. I carried a steaming bowl of spicy noodles, stumbling to the table. I couldn't help but complain, so hot. I didn't rush to eat, using a spoon to scoop half a bowl of broth for Wooden Grace. Smiling, I explained, "This way, dip the veggies in. It'll cool faster." The steaming broth carried the aroma of sesame sauce. Seeing Wooden Grace not touching her chopsticks, I pushed a meatball into her broth and stuffed the chopsticks into her hand. Eat. Fearing she'd feel embarrassed, I added, "It's give and take. I ate your bread. You should eat my veggies. Hurry up, finish it. We still have class this afternoon." Wooden Grace's hand holding the chopsticks trembled slightly. With a wary tone she said, "Effort true. You don't need to be so nice to me. No matter how nice you are. I want like you. Wouldn't Grace wanted to see me react to this? To flip out. So she'd feel normal. But I just adjusted my posture and curved my lips into a smile. It's fine. I'll try a bit harder. Before you said you'd never be my girlfriend. And now aren't you? I advise you not to speak to absolutely. You might fall for the law of true fragrance. Wouldn't Grace fell silent again. The spicy noodles over 30 yuan were a large portion. Two people couldn't possibly finish it. So Wouldn't Grace ate until she was full. After eating, I wiped my mouth and said 30 minutes left. Let's head back to school. Wouldn't Grace nodded silently. As we passed Forrest Suttle's table, he suddenly reached out and grabbed Wouldn't Grace. Before I could get angry, he let go. But I didn't want even this small action to exist. I stopped immediately, coldly saying seducing my girlfriend in front of me. Not cool. From a reader's perspective, this Forrest Suttle should be the shining righteous protagonist, radiating justice everywhere. But to me, he was just a nuisance. He wouldn't even end up with Wouldn't Grace later. Why was he meddling? Forrest Suttle's face flushed red and white from my words. Looking at his angry friends, he said, "What do you mean?" I laughed in frustration. What do I mean? He grabs my girlfriend's hand in front of me and hates the one in the right. Forrest Suttle flushed, saying, "Everyone knows you forced her." I was baffled. Why did this guy keep bringing up nonsense? As if I were truly a villain. Clearly Wouldn't Grace herself said she wanted to be my girlfriend. I grabbed a nearby chair, angrily saying, "Are you tired of living?" Seeing my demeanor, Wouldn't Grace felt the surreal sensation from earlier gradually return. Noticing what alarmed the owner, and students around us were staring. Wouldn't Grace pulled me back, her voice carrying a plea, "Don't make a scene. Can you not cause trouble?" Wouldn't Grace thought I wouldn't listen, but I only paused for a moment, immediately setting the chair aside, nodding repeatedly, "All right. No trouble, let's go." As soon as Wouldn't Grace stepped out, she let go of my wrist. I followed behind, my heart racing. My face felt hot. Who could stand this? Before, Wouldn't Grace always spoke to me with sarcasm, never showing a good expression. Who knew her pleading would be so heart-stirring? That cold charisma was truly captivating. No wonder she'd later become the greatest villain, pursued by countless people. Wouldn't Grace walked ahead, her expression dark and unreadable. Just now, Forrest Suttle had grabbed her hand, slipping her a small note. Luckily, I didn't see it. Otherwise, I might have met my end today. During the afternoon class, I spent the whole time facing away from Wouldn't Grace sleeping. Occasionally, my soft snoring echoed in the classroom. It reminded Wouldn't Grace of the kitten she raised as a child. Wouldn't Grace felt she was going a bit mad. Near the end of class, I woke up gradually from my nap, stretching. Just then the physics teacher caught me. Effort to explain how to solve this problem. What could I say? I stammered as I stood, looking at the literature book wet with my drool, my face full of embarrassment. The teacher's expression said had known this would happen. He said, "If you can't figure it out, stand there." I scratched my head, shoulders slumping. River Jade Charm seemed to love kicking me when I was down. She turned and sneered. Originally, I sat with River Jade Charm, but to win over Wouldn't Grace, I switched seats. Our relationship had shattered. Now in class, one was practically alone. Not to mention, Wouldn't Grace's feelings toward me were a mix of love and hate. I looked out the window. The sunset was half fallen, the horizon layered with red clouds. It was beautiful. I gazed at the scenery. Wouldn't Grace gazed at me. Wouldn't Grace gripped her pen. Hearing me sigh, lowering her eyes, she asked, "Girlfriend, what are we eating tonight?" Wouldn't Grace paused and said, "I don't want to eat." I knew she'd say that. I smiled, "I want to eat. You're my girlfriend. You have to keep me company. My bank card is frozen. The driver's been called away too. I can only take the bus myself. My house is about to be sold. The agent checked it out, and several people are interested in buying it. If the process is quick, it might be my last happy day in the big villa." I was reluctant, but I didn't want to bow to effort pure. This villa sold for 3 million. The beer even had some ties to the Effort family, an archenemy. After learning this, I signed the contract without hesitation. Effort pure hearing the news would surely buy the villa back. He wouldn't let others know his son was broke, selling the house a humiliating scandal. This was a clever move on my part. With the money, I rented a place near Wood & Grace, in the same building as Wood & Grace. But I didn't dare tell her, fearing she'd turn on me, causing my mission to fail. Every day, I quietly brought breakfast for Wood & Grace, dragging her to eat 3 meals. Wood & Grace went along without saying much, but her attitude softened slightly. While eating small dishes with her, I probed, which university are you aiming for? Wood & Grace would apply to River City University because she didn't want to be far from her mother. As expected, she honestly said River City University. I asked again what major. Wood & Grace said computer science probably. I was startled, no way. Because the main characters would also study computer science. They'd be classmates then. The heroine's grades would crush Wood & Grace's, igniting her fierce competitive streak. This was also a key trigger for Wood & Grace's descent into darkness. I casually said, how about considering medicine? Wood & Grace didn't want to be swayed. As expected, she immediately objected. Pretending not to notice, I said naturally medicine's good, high-paying jobs later, and strong skills. It's needed everywhere. Most importantly, saving lives is a good deed. Maybe it could help her shed the villain label and become a good person. Wood & Grace said flatly not interested. I'd eaten my fill, but she saw through me. I was dragging her to eat just because I thought she was pitiful. Wood & Grace was grateful to me, but she knew these things would later become a joke. Wood & Grace had already planned it out. When I tore off my mask, she'd kill me without mercy. Medicine, she'd thought about it plenty. Since childhood, she felt she'd become a programmer. Wood & Grace cut me off. Instead of worrying about me worrying about your grades, I was taken aback, suddenly struck by a great idea. Right, my grades are terrible. How about this? From now on, I'll treat you to meals, and you tutor me. With less than half a month until the college entrance exam, teachers had loosened up. Those who wanted to teach didn't. Those who didn't want to couldn't teach anything anyway. Wood & Grace seriously sized me up, concluding, hopeless. I pouted, you haven't tried, how do you know it's hopeless? I'm very smart. Wood & Grace sneered, smart yet always at the bottom of the class. I furrowed my brow but said nothing. Wood & Grace, because of my expression, hesitated for a moment, then heard me mutter softly, isn't there a saying, sharpen your spear before the battle? Even if it's not sharp, it'll shine. You haven't tried. How can you say it won't work? Wood & Grace didn't want to owe me favors. During this time, thanks to me, her life had improved a lot. She finally relented to hours of evening self-study. Seeing her agree, I immediately smiled, so you're in. I jumped with joy. You can't back out now. An indescribable feeling stirred in Wood & Grace's heart. She looked straight into my eyes, as if trying to see through my soul. Wood & Grace suddenly asked, you're different from before. My scalp tingled. I heard the system mutter coldly in my ear. I told you not to break character. I was truly panicked, but only for a moment. I boasted arrogantly, of course. Maybe we won't see each other after this. Let's make up for it in this short time. Wood & Grace asked to ease your conscience. I didn't know how to act. Saying yes wasn't right, nor was saying no. I smacked my head, my face full of grievance. If you think that I can't do anything about it. Wood & Grace curved her lips into a cold smile. Standing up, she said, I'm leaving. I had no idea what sensitive spot of hers I'd touched. I hurriedly shoved a bite of food in my mouth and chased after her. During this time, I hadn't reconciled with those bad friends. River Jade Charm still couldn't control her temper. Seeing me being close with Wood & Grace, all sweet and affectionate, she passed by, saw me studying, and tapped the desk saying, you're overdoing it. Effort true, do you really think you're a good student now? I looked up expressionless, saying, what's it to you? River Jade Charm sneered, saying, I heard your dad kick you outright, and you're even selling the house. I replied coldly, none of your business. River Jade Charm pulled a chair and sat across from us, raising an eyebrow at Wood & Grace, then looking at me saying, you spend money like water. Will the money from the house sale be enough? Want to come beg me? I could have my dad put in a good word with yours. Isn't that better than following this poor girl? I slammed the desk irritated saying, are you done? This character had barely any role in the original story. Why was she causing so much trouble now? Couldn't she see my mission target was getting dark and volatile? Ready to explode. Riverjade Charm didn't want to live, but I did. The next second, Wooden Grace folded her worksheet in half saying I have something to do. I'm leaving. She didn't want to get involved in our mess. Riverjade Charm stretched her leg, blocking Wooden Grace's path from under the desk. Mocking what business does our academic star have? Rushing to wash dishes or serve food for someone. Wooden Grace's face flushed with anger, coldly staring at Riverjade Charm. Seeing a fight about to break out, I stepped between them irritated saying, Riverjade Charm, if you have something to say to me, say it outside. Riverjade Charm saw my urgency, sneering with disdain, does it hurt? As I left Wooden Grace's side, the narrow path made our bodies almost brush past each other. Wooden Grace caught a faint scent from me, somewhat alluring. Riverjade Charm followed me out, deliberately turning to provoke Wooden Grace with a look. Some unknown force. Before we'd gone far, Wooden Grace stepped out too, under the school's streetlights. My face was red with anger. Fuming, I said, are you sick? Riverjade Charm took a cigarette from her pocket, lit one, and offered the pack to me. I slapped her hand away saying, I'm studying with Wooden Grace. What's it to you? Riverjade Charm's voice rose sharply, carrying a hint of anger. You're the one who's sick. Effort true, I said. It's fine to play with her, but you've gone too far. Have you actually fallen for her? What's it to me? Didn't your dad tell you? Our families are arranging a marriage. My voice stopped abruptly. I looked at Riverjade Charm in horror, my mind in chaos. I hurriedly asked the system, is this true? Why didn't you tell me? When I arrived in this world, the system only showed me the original character's light, like watching a movie, but the lens always followed Wooden Grace. I, a side character, really didn't have many scenes to speak of. The system said helplessly, I didn't know either. I was about to explain when I heard Riverjade Charm say, do you know what you look like now? Like a dog desperately licking after Wooden Grace. She doesn't know you're living below her, right? I saw you sneaking behind her, and I found it laughable. I was truly enraged by her. Before I could get a word out, my blood felt like it was flowing backward. Not far off, Wooden Grace was quietly watching me with an indescribable expression. Riverjade Charm clearly noticed my reaction, turned to look, and couldn't help but laugh. She heard it. Might as well be upfront then. Riverjade Charm stared at me, saying either you stay away from her, or it'll make her leave, or tell your dad. You found him such a great daughter-in-law. Choose. I clenched my fists, gritting my teeth. Wooden Grace. Her lips curled into a meaningful smile, saying effort true. You're really something. All night I thought about where I went wrong. Clearly in the original story, I was just a cannon fodder side character. Not even a proper side character. More like a passing cannon fodder. A passerby in a romance drama. Why was I getting the treatment of a love triangle battlefield? I thought and thought, lying in bed sighing. Hearing a noise outside the door, I jolted upright, looking through the peephole, my heart sank. It was midnight. Why was Wooden Grace at my door? Wooden Grace's face was expressionless. I nervously looked around. If she made a move now, I had a mop to use as a weapon. I gripped the mop tightly and opened the door. Wooden Grace glanced at me saying, you really moved here. I straightened up, pretending to be at ease. I'm out of money. The rent here is cheap. Wooden Grace was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, tittering, without caring what I thought. She pushed past me into the room. The place was very bare, with only a few essential pieces of furniture, looking extremely simple. Following her gaze, I saw clothes strewn across the sofa. The corner of my mouth twitched. I strode over quickly, tidying them up. The place is a bit messy. More than a bit messy. Wooden Grace curved her lips, pretending not to notice, saying to herself, we didn't finish the 2 hours of evening self-study today. I saw you only did half the homework. If you're serious about trying, finish the homework first. I stood by the wall observing her. Was she really here to tutor me? I cautiously looked around, confirming no danger before slightly relaxing. Because of my words, wouldn't Grace turned her gaze to me. I was wearing a loose shirt, revealing toned arms, casual but not lacking masculinity. Wouldn't Grace only now realized coming to a boy's house late at night was a bit inappropriate. Wouldn't Grace turned her face away. Never mind. I came at a bad time. We missed tutoring today. It'll help you during morning self-study tomorrow. Seeing her about to leave, I raised an eyebrow. I knew tutoring was just an excuse. She only came to confirm River Jade Charm's words, knowing she wouldn't ask outright. I took the initiative. I can explain what happened today. Wouldn't Grace curved her lips with a cold edge. No need to explain. I understand everything. I panicked. I really wasn't stalking you. I just rented a place downstairs from you. Seeing her unmoved, I gave up entirely. I just wanted to be closer to you. I had no ulterior motives. Wouldn't Grace's expression grew colder. The next second she pinned me to the sofa. Her voice low, effort true, playing both sides. This makes me sick. Thanks for your kindness these past 2 days. No need for it anymore. I was miserable, unable to speak, only managing a pained explanation. I really didn't know about the arranged marriage. I like you. I want to be with you. Wouldn't Grace sneered and River Jade Charm. I was overjoyed hearing her say that. Saying I liked her, there had to be a reason, right? Because you saw I had no power or influence. Just playing for fun, right? After all, you've got River Jade Charm to back you up, don't you? Wouldn't Grace said with a mocking smile. Now that you mention it, I suddenly feel stealing someone else's fiancé seems quite thrilling. I swallowed hard, saying nothing. Wouldn't Grace grabbed my collar and pulled hard. The sound of fabric rustling echoed clearly in the quiet room. Wouldn't Grace's eyes darkened, dressed like this, trying to seduce someone? I was truly panicked. Grabbing her wrist, you're talking nonsense. Who's sick like you? Knocking on my door in the middle of the night. Wouldn't Grace's hand suddenly stopped, as if she wanted to strangle me. Gritting her teeth, I don't care what your intentions are. Since you're here, behave yourself. Don't go provoking River Jade Charm. Otherwise, my eyes met hers without fear. Continuing, otherwise you'll kill me, right? Wouldn't Grace narrowed her eyes, seemingly displeased that I saw through her. You're overthinking. Poor people have their ways. It hasn't come to killing. Saying that, she turned and left. I leaned on my forehead, laughing. Hasn't come to that. In the original story, didn't she kill me after the college entrance exam? Having torn off the last mask, I seemed to grow much bolder. The next morning, I directly grabbed breakfast and waited downstairs, timing it perfectly for Wouldn't Grace. Before I was afraid she'd know I lived here, deliberately waiting until she left before sneaking down. When Wouldn't Grace came out, seeing me holding 2 cups of soy milk and hand-rolled pancakes, she frowned. What are you doing? I said, naturally waiting for you. Since you found out, can I go to school with you from now on? Wouldn't Grace silently walked downstairs, pushing her old bicycle. I familiarly sat on the back seat of the bike, holding the 2 cups of soy milk, patting the seat. Let's go. Wouldn't Grace frowned, argue. A bit too shameless. I didn't understand. I didn't do anything. Didn't you say we'd continue tutoring in morning self-study? Hurry if you're late. More classmates will arrive, and they'll see you giving me a ride to school. Wouldn't Grace took a deep breath as she got on the bike. My hands were already around her waist. Through the thin shirt, I could feel her slender frame. Wouldn't Grace's body stiffened. Gritting her teeth, let go. I held on tighter, whispering, no way. I'm afraid you'll throw me off mid-ride. Wouldn't Grace let out a soft huff, forcibly suppressing her anger. My hands were a bit cold, the warmth passing through the thin shirt. Occasionally, because of her pedaling speed, I tightened my grip, then loosened it. Wouldn't Grace's cheeks flushed slightly, though she didn't quite understand why she reacted this way. She pedaled furiously, and in a secluded corner pulled me off, saying, I'm going to park the bike, go to class and wait for me. I pouted, Aren't you just afraid of others seeing us together? What's there to hide? Everyone in school knows about our relationship, but I still nodded, handing her the breakfast. Don't forget to eat. I walked into class carefree, my steps light. Wooden Grace was momentarily stunned, nodding nervously, letting out a long sigh. As the day to determine my fate drew closer, I grew more anxious. I couldn't tell if Wooden Grace was genuinely kind to me, or as in the original story, boiling the frog slowly to make me let my guard down. On the way to class, I couldn't help but tell the system to check Wooden Grace's favorability. These past few days I'd wanted to check, but didn't dare. I was afraid of seeing a favorability of 100, which would crush my spirit. The system's calm voice sounded alright. Checking for you now. Villain's favorability 70. I froze mid-step, both shocked and disappointed. Shocked that pleasing Wooden Grace actually worked. Disappointed that it didn't work much. I slightly regretted turning off favorability notifications. I had no idea where Wooden Grace's favorability dropped from. I hurriedly said turn this function back on. Don't turn it off again. Then, I stopped at the school gate, preparing to test the waters. Less than 5 minutes later, Wooden Grace arrived at the gate. The breakfast in her hand was nearly finished. Seeing me, her eyes narrowed. Before I could flash what I thought was a cool smile, I heard the system report Villain's favorability 71. The smile on my lips instantly vanished. What was so sensitive about this? I didn't do anything, just appeared in front of her. I hadn't even spoken and her favorability dropped. I struggled to hold myself upright, saying I want to go in with you. Wooden Grace set the half-drunk soy milk aside, her face cold, asking, you look unwell. Are you sick? Wasn't it her who made me sick? I took a deep breath, lifting my head, feigning grievance. I just thought, if I left, I'd see you 10 minutes less. We don't have much time together. I don't want to be apart from you for so long. Then I heard Villain's favorability 72. Alright. I understood. Wooden Grace didn't like clingy, disobedient people. Fine, I'm leaving. I turned to go, hearing Wooden Grace say, if you want to be with me, come along. Villain's favorability 70. What the hell? I regretted again. After turning on system notifications, my emotions were like a roller coaster. I couldn't guess at all what Wooden Grace was thinking in those few minutes for her favorability to change so fast. I followed behind Wooden Grace. The whole class, seeing me and Wooden Grace arrive together for the first time, was abuzz with chatter. I'd changed a lot recently. A bold boy sitting in front asked, what's going on? Has our goddess would finally given in? My face flushed. What nonsense are you talking? Not from embarrassment, but from anger. I was terrified that this comment would make Wooden Grace think something bad. I hurriedly tried to stop it, but for half a day no system notification came, nor did Wooden Grace show any reaction. Testing the waters, I followed up. Goddess would call her sister-in-law. Many in the class burst into laughter, some with goodwill, some with mockery. The next second, the system reported Villain's favorability 68. I looked at Wooden Grace in shock. Wooden Grace pulled out her homework from her bag, lifting her head to ask me, did you finish last night's homework? I was about to speak. Seeing her frown, you never wanted to study properly. I hurriedly replied, I did it. Wooden Grace said dismissively, 5 minutes for one assignment. I touched my nose. I did it seriously. Wooden Grace held out her hand. Let me see. I quickly pulled out the homework. This was something I racked my brain to complete. Having transmigrated through countless school-setting novels, I'd been forced to study countless subjects. Though this assignment was a bit tough, with effort and Baidu research, I managed it. Wooden Grace was surprised. You actually did it. This assignment, aside from my messy handwriting, had a high accuracy rate. I pouted. I told you I'm not stupid. Wooden Grace narrowed her eyes, asking, then why don't you study properly? I didn't know what to say. My only focus was to complete this mission and escape this damn task, to return to the real world. I had no time for distractions. Wooden Grace didn't press further, taking an old notebook from her bag, saying, this is the knowledge I organized before. It covers every subject. Give it a try. Ask me if you don't understand something. I took it with gratitude, pretending to dive into studying like a boat on a sea of knowledge. Solemnly opening the notebook. Wouldn't Grace's handwriting didn't match her personality. It was elegant and neat, with sharp, precise strokes. I touched the writing, smiling, saying, "Your handwriting is beautiful." Wouldn't Grace didn't hesitate. "Yours is just too ugly." The corner of my mouth twitched. She'd really grown bolder. If not for the favorability of 68, two outsiders would look like a close couple. I scratched the back of my neck, pouting. Should I buy a calligraphy workbook then? I heard the college entrance exam is machine graded, right? Wouldn't Grace didn't quite understand. Asking machine graded. I froze. Oh no! This ear is setting. Hadn't advanced to high tech yet. I gritted my teeth. Never mind. I was thinking nonsense. Wouldn't Grace didn't dwell on it, saying you really should get a calligraphy workbook. Otherwise you'll keep losing points for presentation. Anyway, if you do poorly, your family will still get you into a good school to continue studying. I denied it. No way. My denial made a strange glint flash in Wooden Grace's eyes. She frowned at me as if probing something. I took a deep breath, pulling a book from my bag. I didn't want to play the pity card, but to close the class gap with Wooden Grace, there'd always be a glass wall between us. Of course, if playing the pity card could spark Wooden Grace's sympathy, I could make myself sound even more tragic. Thinking of the original story's plot, I said earnestly, "My dad cheated early on. I have a younger brother 3 months younger than me. We share a father but have different mothers. They haven't needed me for a long time." My eyes held a hint of gloom. I shrugged casually, saying that year just months after my mom died, my dad brought in a stepmother and my brother. They were a happy family of 3. I couldn't fit in. I heard the favorability rise bit by bit. My mouth kept going before I was rebellious. Just because I wanted my dad to notice me more. Suddenly, it didn't work. He grew to hate me more and more. I didn't want to grovel to him either. After all, he's the reason I lost my mom. But you hearing all this, don't you find it annoying? I deliberately made my eyes red, tears brimming at the corners. Wouldn't Grace's heart trembled? Right after I heard the system in my head. Villain's favorability 61. Every word I said rippled through Wouldn't Grace's heart, tiny waves spreading. Then, Wouldn't Grace said expressionlessly, "Serves you right." My face twitched and I slumped onto the desk. Wouldn't Grace was truly hard-mouthed, clearly feeling sorry for me yet still scolding me. I secretly rubbed my thigh. Earlier hit was too hard. It was probably bruising. When I thought this cold girl would keep being tough, Wouldn't Grace spoke. "It's not a big deal. Live for yourself, not to chase others' affection. Your dad doesn't deserve it either." I was secretly thrilled. Wouldn't Grace felt uneasy, said that and propped her forehead, opening a literature exam paper, immersing herself in a sea of knowledge. She didn't hear me flipping pages. After finishing one problem, she turned to see me propped on my hand, eyes closed, fast asleep. Wouldn't Grace slightly regretted it. She sensed her hatred for me was slowly fading. She'd thought about the things I did before, replaying them in her mind over and over. But it was useless. She started thinking I just didn't understand emotions, didn't know how to connect. Now she thought I was just a rebellious, impulsive teenager, like her, lacking love and appearing strange in others' eyes. Wouldn't Grace glared and tapped me awake. I jolted, gasping, eyes wide, asking what's wrong. Wouldn't Grace's face was cold. "I told you to read, not to sleep." My face fell, miserably propping my forehead, sighing. Meanwhile, Wouldn't Grace, her lips, in a place no one noticed, curved slightly. I discovered Wouldn't Grace was a very responsible person. I might have been a bit careless with her. Woken by another tap, I was on the verge of collapse. My left hand propped my forehead, like a chicken pecking rice whenever Wouldn't Grace looked over. I instantly focused. "Am not sleeping, really not sleeping." Wouldn't Grace sneered, but didn't mind my small actions. During the break between classes, I immediately closed my book, slumping onto the desk, sleeping like the dead. I was completely unaware that during this gap, River Jade Charm tapped Wooden Grace's desk, signaling with her eyes. Wooden Grace's eyes darkened, standing to follow River Jade Charm outside. When the bell for class rang, I realized Wooden Grace hadn't returned. River Jade Charm walked in right on time, with a smug smile, flashing me a provocative grin. Wooden Grace couldn't possibly skip class. The teacher asked about her whereabouts. No one answered. He began today's lecture. I irritably glanced at my watch. 10 minutes passed, and Wooden Grace still hadn't returned. I overheard some nearby chatter. A few people laughing, dropping words like, "Wooden Grace," "rooftop," "stupid idiot." In that moment, a nerve in my brain snapped. I was so angry I couldn't hold back. I worked so hard to protect my villain, struggling to lower her darkness value. Why didn't these people help, and instead caused trouble? I swallowed hard, standing abruptly, ignoring the teacher's surprised look. Rushing out of the classroom, I leapt from my chair, running toward the rooftop. I clenched my fists, my fingers trembling slightly. I charged up quickly. The wooden rooftop door was pushed open by me, creaking loudly. I saw Wooden Grace sitting by the edge of the rooftop. Her slender figure looked especially fragile. Her white uniform was torn, revealing pale wrists. Her body was covered in dust. Her delicate face bore scratches. Hearing the noise, she turned her head. Her almond eyes held a trace of confusion. Wooden Grace's slender fingers tugged at her torn uniform. Her small back bore several whip marks. Startling to see. "They told you, didn't they?" Wooden Grace's cold voice was slightly hoarse. I clenched my fists tightly. "I overheard them. You're truly a walking disaster." Wooden Grace's lips pressed together. Her tone, I see. At that moment, I heard the system announce villain's favorability 100. All my efforts down the drain. I was truly aggrieved. Tears fell uncontrollably. My tears clearly flustered Wooden Grace. She stood up, her enchanting figure approaching me. She frowned. "Stay away from me. If you really like me, please let my life have some peace." Saying that, she turned to leave. She didn't go to class, and when I returned, I didn't see her. River Jade Charm saw my expression, curving her lips into a cold smile. In that moment, I finally couldn't hold back my boiling anger. I charged forward in front of the whole class, slapping River Jade Charm hard across the face. She clearly didn't expect me to do that. The literature teacher was stunned. "What are you doing?" River Jade Charm, holding her face, stared at me in disbelief. "River Jade Charm, you've really opened my eyes. If you've got the guts, come at me. Why go after Wooden Grace? In the one clinging to her, don't you know that?" I ranted nonstop. The literature teacher saw me grabbing River Jade Charm's collar, shouting, "Effort true. If you don't want to study, get out and go home. What are you causing a ruckus for in class? Go home." "Fine, I'll go home." I didn't even want to stay with these hateful people. I gritted my teeth. What happened had happened. I didn't want to salvage anything anymore. With Wooden Grace's personality, she must hate me to death now. She had to go to class. She had to follow the plot. I was just cannon fodder. A soon-to-be dead person. What was there to care about? I said I'd leave, and I did, shocking everyone. I grabbed my bag and walked the streets, lost and dazed. The system nagged in my ear, complaining, "Host, you were too impulsive. If you really drop out, there'll be no chance to turn things around." Hearing the word chance, I scoffed. I never had a chance. Don't you know? Wooden Grace's favorability swings up and down. Completely inhumane. I don't want to pursue this mission anymore. Die early, move on to the next task. Seeing her is annoying. Before, Wooden Grace gave me some illusions. Her favorability, though unstable, was at least progressing well, with a glimmer of hope. Who knew? One incident sent us back to square one. Good thing I don't have a heart condition, or with her tormenting me like this, I die on the spot, having my lifespan. The system didn't understand human emotions, only advising beside me. There's still half a month left. Host, keep trying. As long as you make her abandon the idea of killing you, there'll be a chance to turn things around. You idiot! I snorted. In the original story, she was destined to be the murderer, a born villain like this. Even if I sold my house, I couldn't save her. I walked back, the streets bustling with cars, strangers hurrying by. I suddenly felt very sad. I no longer remembered why I had to do these missions. In my memories, I'd helped many people, saved countless tragic endings. It was joyful then, earning points to exchange for shrank missions, to return to reality sooner. But why I had to return? I had no impression. The system didn't allow missioners to retain thoughts of reality. Once I became a missioner, my memories of reality vanished. But vaguely, I remembered someone in reality waiting for me. I kicked a stone in front of me. Unexpectedly, I saw Wooden Grace downstairs. She was carrying a trash bag, having changed into clean clothes, wearing a white dress, looking even more cold and ethereal. Our eyes met. Wooden Grace coldly turned her face away, not saying a word. I stood still, saying as we passed, "I'm sorry. Go to class. I can ensure they won't bully you anymore. The harm and trouble I caused you before. I'm sorry. I know it's useless, but I still have to say, well, never mind." The words I wanted to say stopped abruptly. I ruffled my hair striding upstairs. Wooden Grace was a bit dazed. Wasn't it class time now? Why was I out here? But she immediately understood. Hadn't I always been like this before? Sleeping like the dead at home, looking up at the dirty, stifling ceiling, the creaking ceiling fan. The door was pounded loudly. I hesitated for a moment, then opened it, seeing Effort Pure face cold as frost, and Jewel Tripod dressed garishly behind him. My eyes turned cold instantly. What's the matter? Effort True. Effort Pure almost ground out the words. Jewel Tripod beside him played the peacemaker. Soothing True is still a kid. Don't hold it against him. Effort Pure eyes, as if they could bore holes through me, looked around the house, mocking him. This kid sold the villa his mother left him. Young, not studying properly. Fighting and causing trouble is one thing, but following that kind of girl to this place. I heard at school, you declared you're done studying, right? Fine, don't study then. You're not exactly prime material anyway, it's almost graduation. The girl from the River family seems decent. Paka prepared to join their family as a son-in-law. What did you say? I was stunned. Is this something a father says? So what, that's all you're worth? Effort Pure said coldly. I heard everything from the River girl. She's quite good, not holding your past actions against you. After the college entrance exam, I'll arrange for you to study abroad in America. I clenched my fists, saying nothing. It was meaningless. Arguing was pointless, because I wouldn't even survive past the college entrance exam. But above all else, Effort Pure said one thing he shouldn't have. If you were half the person your mother was, I wouldn't be this disappointed in you. He dared mention my mother. I looked at Jewel Tripod beside him. All my grievances at this moment could not be hidden. I trembled, pointing at the woman behind him. My mother was truly remarkable. But wasn't it because she couldn't stand against you too? Adulterer and mistress. That slap from him was not unjust in the slightest. I choked, continuing to speak. I wasn't wrong in the least. Effort Pure, your mother died of illness. If I hear you say that again, pray to the heavens I don't deal with you harshly. I doubted this man could deceive even himself. I stepped back to paces. My mother was driven to death by you. You targeted my mother's money. You deceived her feelings. You stepped into our home. Keeping a mistress behind her back was bad enough, but you also stole my mother's money to raise that illegitimate child. I saw him raise his hand, wanting to hit me again. My mother didn't die of illness. She was driven to death by you, forced by you to jump from a building in suicide. I never wanted to tear off this mask with you, because you are my father. But now, I see you're not even as good as a stranger who treats me kindly. Don't talk to me about money. The money you and Jewel Tripod are spending. Every coin bears the shadow of my mother. Do you want to die? Effort Pure gritted his teeth, trembling. He grabbed my collar in fury. Jewel Tripod's eyes were red, tears welling up. She still pretended to soothe Effort Pure emotions. In the eyes of outsiders, she truly seemed like a virtuous wife doing something noble. At that moment, Wooden Grace's cold voice rang out. He stood at the staircase holding a convenience store bag. His gaze held no warmth. Effort Pure saw him and hesitated briefly. because he bore too strong a resemblance to someone effort pure knew. If you want to argue, do it inside. There are many elderly people napping in this building. After Wooden Grace spoke, he didn't turn to leave. He paused at the corner of the staircase, glancing at effort pure from above. By the way, he's still a minor, protected by the law. Speak nicely if you have something to say. Don't resort to violence, or you might end up invited for tea at the police station. Effort pure looked at Wooden Grace in surprise, his brows tightly furrowed. Jewel Tripod hurriedly pulled him away. Come on, he's still a child. Don't stoop to his level. Effort pure clenched his fists tightly, looking at me with a cold smile. Whatever you think. If you still want to call me father, behave yourself. Don't provoke me again. After Effort pure spoke, he was dragged away by Jewel Tripod. I stood at the door taking a deep breath. Helplessly, I curved my lips. If it weren't for following the original plot, to avoid unnecessary disruptions, I wouldn't bother with this bizarre couple. I touched my face. It really hurt. Effort pure with his own flesh and blood truly didn't hold back at all. If it can be sold, sell it. I gave a bitter laugh. Just as I was about to close the door, I saw Wooden Grace return. You're not going to school anymore. Wooden Grace stood 3 steps away from me. His eyes were dark and heavy, as if probing my thoughts. I nodded. So go to school with peace of mind. Not seeing me at school must make you happy, right? Because of this, I said I don't want to see River Jade Charm. It's nothing, I'll rest now. I spoke and was about to close the door. Wooden Grace held it back. He furrowed his brows tightly, his voice lowering a few degrees. Does your father often force you like that? Does it hurt? I touched my face, biting my lip. I shook my head. Am not going to school either. Wooden Grace's words truly stunned me. What's this about? Anyway, it's the review period now. The teachers have taught everything they needed to. Reviewing at home is fine too. Wooden Grace curved his lips, looking at me with complex eyes. By the way, I'll tutor you. If your father doesn't want you, with your grades it'll be hard to get into university. Don't overthink it. I see you genuinely want to make amends. If I just let you be, I fear in the future, who knows how far you'll fall. I was repeatedly surprised. The direction of this plot was truly unexpected. Are you serious? Wooden Grace nodded. I looked at him, my heart overflowing with emotion. You really want to help me? A spark suddenly flashed in my mind. The system didn't report an increase in favorability, but Wooden Grace's attitude was clearly softening. Wooden Grace, because of my counter-question, coldly furrowed his brows. Forget it, pretend I didn't say anything. No way! I grabbed his hand, my eyes sparkling with grievance. Wooden Grace thought, if I had a little tail behind me, it would surely be wagging furiously. He lowered his gaze. He heard me say nervously, you promised someone. You have to follow through. Come on, let's start tutoring now. Wooden Grace felt his eyelids twitch. He brushed my hand away. Wait for me to get my textbooks. I watched Wooden Grace go upstairs, asking the system, how do you define favorability? The person the villain hates in their heart. I scoffed with disdain. I think your system must have a problem. How could Wooden Grace look like he hates me? Have you forgotten? The system coldly reminded from the other side. In the original story, Wooden Grace was kind to the original host too. What was the purpose? My scalp tingled. Wooden Grace had come back downstairs, carrying his old worn-out bag. Seeing me, he was slightly surprised. Why are you still standing here? I was a bit anxious, rubbing my hands. Wooden Grace curved his lips. My place only has one study desk, old and rickety, barely holding together. It looked rarely used. There wasn't a single book on the desk. Wooden Grace propped up the shaky desk, immediately turning to place his bag on the coffee table. In truth, there were many moments when I could truly forget that I would die at Wooden Grace's hands. For example, when he was by my side, occasionally guiding me through problems, as if genuinely caring about my future. You're clearly very smart. Wooden Grace held my latest test paper. The mistakes, mostly due to carelessness in the results. If I said before that you copied from somewhere, this time you did it right in front of me. No praise, huh? I never said I was dumb. I muttered in retort. Then I heard the system counter. If you're so capable, don't ask me. See if you can solve this math problem. Annoying, shut up. I snapped irritably. Wouldn't Grace close the book? I found a part-time job. Review the book yourself. Am leaving. I really didn't follow him anymore. After he left, I threw down my pen, propped my chin, and asked the system. I keep feeling he has no intention of killing me. In the original story at this time, is there any thrilling plot? This time the system was useful, checking and summarizing. There is. In the original story, the original host's older brother once sought out Wooden Grace. Additionally, he met the male lead 3 times, one of which would increase the favorability of the target with the male lead. When does it happen? I jumped up. There aren't many days left in this half-month. Even if I can't increase my own favorability, I can't let Wooden Grace head toward liking the male lead, growing darker and darker. A female supporting character with the male lead is hopeless, probably in a few days. The system spoke vaguely. No way! I scrambled to my feet, hurriedly grabbing my bag. I have to stick close to Wooden Grace. Can't let anyone steal my thunder. Wooden Grace's part-time job suddenly changed to a cafe. I wasn't foolish enough to go inside the cafe, so I deliberately squatted at the milk tea shop across the street. 1 milk tea a day, sitting until Wooden Grace got off work, then secretly following him home. In just a few days, I got familiar with the milk tea shop staff. Some even teased, "You like that pretty sister. Be brave and pursue her. A handsome guy like you, she'll definitely fall for you." I looked left and right. It was time for Wooden Grace to get off work. I immediately packed up, grabbing my half-drunk milk tea, hurrying to follow. I always kept my distance, 10 steps from Wooden Grace. I'd already planned. If caught, I'd say I was just there for milk tea. Nothing to do with Wooden Grace. Wooden Grace walked leisurely, a smile playing on his lips. Seeing an alley, he slipped into it when no one was looking. Just moments ago, I was following with my head down. When I looked up, he was gone. I panicked, quickening my pace to steps, looking around everywhere. I only looked down for a few minutes. Where did he go? I froze. A cold voice came from behind. "The test I told you to do, have you finished it?" I turned around, seeing Wooden Grace leaning against the alley wall, with a lazy demeanor. The slender figure of the girl, about 1.7 meters tall, wearing the cafe uniform, exuded an unapproachable aura. The white shirt made him seem even more ethereal. His gestures carried a unique charisma. "Why are you following me every day?" Wooden Grace's question made me reel. I set down the milk tea, my prepared line not yet spoken. Resigned, I said, "How did you find out? Who follows someone, tailing so closely every day, head down, not even bothering to hide? Do you think I'm blind or stupid?" I retorted. I wasn't. I was just worried. Worried about what? Wooden Grace was slightly surprised. I tugged at my shirt hem, looking up to say, "You're so beautiful. What if someone else takes a liking to you? And that work outfit of yours? It's not a work outfit at all. It's clearly meant to seduce people." Wooden Grace listened to me expressionlessly. I took 2 steps toward him. He grabbed me hard, spinning me and pinning me against the wall. I was pressed close to him, catching a faint scent of mint. Looking up, I met his deep eyes. I held my breath. A soft laugh came from his throat, his voice like a clear spring. "Pleasant, you like me that much, following me so closely? Well, I have a better way, so you'll never leave me. Want to try it?" In Wooden Grace's eyes, a hard-to-read glint flickered. I hesitated for a moment, saying I do. Wooden Grace hates me, but that hatred seemed to be quietly changing. Wooden Grace's slender white fingers tightened. He slowly leaned closer, his lips lightly brushing the corner of mine. His voice was gentle, like coaxing a child. "Don't say these things to me." My heart trembled, because at that moment I heard the system glitch. The numbers jumping wildly. Villain's favorability 50. Villain's favorability 10. Villain's favorability 99. Madness. I didn't know if the system was mad, or if Wooden Grace was mad. The moment our lips touched, I heard the favorability turn positive. But as we parted, This damned beauty changed her expression again. Do I have bad breath? Go home and do your test. Wouldn't Grace elegantly turned, her long hair fluttering. I stood there dazed for a long while. Wouldn't Grace didn't know what she was thinking either. She wanted to kiss me. Just a moment of impulse. The boy's appearance made her heart race. His lips were unreasonably soft, making her want to explore deeper. In that moment, she felt an unprecedented panic. Her jade-like hand unconsciously pressed her chest, trying to suppress her racing heartbeat. She never thought someone could stir her emotions so much. In just half a month, Effort True was truly a demon. She kept hypnotizing herself, those slender fingers clenched into a fist, surely waiting for me to fall into the trap, then ruthlessly casting me aside to see how pathetic I'd be. This wasn't something Effort True hadn't done before. Wouldn't Grace felt she agreed with Forrest Subtle to go with a few friends to buy stationery. Seeing Wouldn't Grace alone through the roadside window, her face slightly flushed. Wouldn't Grace was truly beautiful, especially in a white shirt. Her cold charisma with a hint of distance, like she held a mysterious story, particularly captivating, especially to a radiant boy like Forrest Subtle. He remembered Wouldn't Grace had never added his contact information. Frowning, he put down his pen and chased after her. Wouldn't Grace, Forrest Subtle called from behind. Wouldn't Grace paused her steps. Turning, she saw Forrest Suttle's face full of excitement. He was always confident, radiant, making Wouldn't Grace envious. Just got off your part-time job. With the college entrance exam coming, you're still working so hard. Wouldn't Grace's expression was indifferent. It's fine. Forrest Subtle saw she didn't want to engage, awkwardly asking, has Effort True been bothering you lately? Hearing a name she didn't want to hear, Wouldn't Grace frowned. What's the matter? Last time I gave you my contact info, you never added me. Forrest Subtle probed. Wouldn't Grace pursed her lips. Though some words were harsh to say, they were true. I don't have a phone, so I don't have those apps either. Sorry. Forrest Suttle's face twitched. He forgot. Wouldn't Grace's family wasn't well off. Otherwise, at this age, she wouldn't be working part-time at this hour. Sorry, I didn't think of that, he said, quickly changing the topic. Have you decided which university to apply to? River City University. Wouldn't Grace and Forrest Subtle had some connection. He was a boy full of justice. Many times when I teased Wouldn't Grace, he always appeared at the right moment, like a knight descending, always seeming out of reach. Really am aiming for River City University to computer science. Wouldn't Grace glanced. This coincidence was a bit surprising, but she felt astonished. Before she could speak, she suddenly saw me behind Forrest Subtle. She looked at me, her expression full of disbelief. For a moment, Wouldn't Grace felt a pang of guilt. Forrest Subtle cheerfully said, if we both get into River City University, can we be good friends? I think we'd get along well. Get along well? My voice gritted through clenched teeth. You sure get along with everyone. I told you last time. Stay away from my girlfriend. My lips carried a smile. I was truly fed up with this original plot event. In less than 10 minutes, the person who needed to meet still met, and I had to hear such annoying words. A lingering ghost. Forrest Subtle called me that. And he wasn't wrong at all. His face flashed with embarrassment, then shame. Angrily he said, what's it to you? Stop being so full of yourself. I laughed coldly. Wouldn't Grace is my girlfriend. What do you think? Is it my business? Girlfriend, you're just assuming, right? My words hit Forrest Suttle's sore spot. He flew into a rage. Forrest Subtle had suffered at my hands more times than he could count. Seeing him embarrassed now, I felt delighted. Before he could kick me a few times, Wouldn't Grace said, it's not an assumption. I turned to look at Wouldn't Grace, my eyes wide, unable to believe my ears. Am really his girlfriend? Forrest Suttle's words choked in his throat, along with my unwilling expression. What Wouldn't Grace just said was true. I didn't mishear. Let's go back home. Wouldn't Grace waved at me, leaving on her own. As I passed Forrest Subtle, I carried a boastful air. What did I tell you? Humph, little pretty boy. Hurry up. Wouldn't Grace stood not far off. Overhearing my provocative words, I shouted loudly, coming. Like a rabbit, I hopped to her side, my face full of joy. I'd long forgotten that half-drunk milk tea in my hand, offering it one to try. Its sweet wooden grace adjusted her glasses, staring at the flattened straw. "I'm not drinking, you drink it." I wasn't embarrassed at all, humming a tune, happily sipping the milk tea. Sometimes wooden grace really thought, was she overthinking? I seemed genuinely foolish, simple and easily satisfied. As long as she was slightly gentle, my eyes seemed to hold shattered stars, twinkling as they looked at her, truly captivating. Thinking of this wooden grace, this morning unwittingly quickened her pace, deliberately leaving me behind. On the way, I talked to wooden grace about many things, like today at the milk tea shop, seeing a naughty child, or spotting some couple. All trivial matters of life, but I cared deeply about them. If you put this effort into studying, getting into a good university would be easy. Hearing about studying, I sighed deeply. What if I don't pass the exam? Wooden grace looked at me slightly dazed. What do you mean? Haven't you heard the saying? Wooden grace interrupted me. 1,000-year calamity. You're worse than a calamity. You can't have a short life. My heart leapt, my face filled with joy. Wooden grace at this moment didn't seem like she wanted to kill me. This made me very happy. I leaned closer saying, "Then you have to live to 100 too." Boring. Wooden grace scoffed, her ears flushing red. She suddenly thought if she stayed with me, this talk of living to 100 would be too dull. When wooden grace was entangled with me, her mother saw us. She seemed to have just gone grocery shopping, standing under a tree looking at wooden grace, slightly surprised, then quietly turning away. Wooden grace irritably shook off my hand. I hadn't noticed this small change, asking what's wrong. "I'm serious. I want to study properly, to get into River City University with you. Then we can study medicine together." "Why do you keep insisting I study medicine?" Wooden grace, hearing my suggestion again, was very resistant before, but now she was a bit curious. I stammered for a while, making up an excuse. "I think medicine suits you. You look especially beautiful in a white coat later." My eyes shone brightly, as if eager to prove I was right. "How shallow!" "I'm going." Wooden grace glanced at her mother standing under the tree, pretending we only had a normal relationship, saying a few more words, then naturally going to help her mother carry the groceries. "I got off work early today," Wooden grace said. Leaf Green looked at me a few more times, asking that boy is. Seeing Leaf Green, I realized why Wooden grace suddenly said a few words to me, to not disturb their mother-daughter time. I quietly followed from a distance. "You live here too. Why didn't you mention it before?" Leaf Green saw I didn't look like someone from a poor background, handsome with good charisma, if not studying dance. Probably a rich young master newly moved in. Leaf Green's eyes darkened, realizing something. Smiling, she said, "Do you like him? We're just classmates." Wooden grace's words were firm, undeniable. Leaf Green knew her place, nodding, not continuing the topic. She was very curious about me. Unexpectedly, the next day, she saw Leaf Green going out, seeing me holding 2 cups of soy milk, fumbling up the stairs. Seeing Leaf Green, I startled. "Are you Wooden grace's classmate?" I swallowed hard, nervously lowering my head, hurrying. "Why aren't you at school either?" Leaf Green knew Wooden grace was studying at home, reviewing, though she said school wasn't necessary now. Leaf Green knew in her heart she just wanted to ease the family's burden, earning a bit more money, nothing more. She often felt guilty toward her child. I got in trouble at school. I was a bit afraid of saying the wrong thing. "Auntie, I wanted to ask if Wooden grace is home." Leaf Green saw I probably liked Wooden grace, because when mentioning her, my eyes lit up. "Can you find her to tutor?" I said to please her, adding I won't let her help for free. "My grades are poor. Wooden grace is excellent." So I came to her. Leaf Green interrupted my stammering. "How can I not see that? Classmates shouldn't talk about helping or not. Our Wooden grace has few friends. Having someone to talk to. I'm already very happy. I'm going to work now. Go find her quickly." Leaf Green finished, pausing, adding, "Actually, our Wooden grace is a good kid. I know I understand a mother's heart. In my transmigration worlds, I even raised a son. Wouldn't Grace is always lonely. Leaf Green understood. I looked up at Leaf Green saying, Wouldn't Grace isn't just good. She's exceptional. Thank you, Auntie. I'm going to find her now. Be careful, Auntie. I hopped away. Leaf Green watched me stand at their door, carefully knocking. She sighed. Wouldn't Grace heard the doorbell, thinking first it was her mother forgetting something. Opening the door and seeing me, she froze. Her hair freshly washed, water dripping from the ends, a white towel around her neck, wearing a white shirt, her collarbone unimaginably beautiful. Why are you here? I inexplicably blushed. Turning my face, handing over the soy milk. I brought you breakfast. Wouldn't Grace glanced frowning, but took it anyway. Actually, she had already eaten. Dishes still sat unwashed on the table. She instinctively blocked my view. Seeing me crane my neck to look, I gave a silly smile. I just met your mom. Wouldn't Grace stiffened, her eyes darkening. What did you say to her? I didn't say anything. I shook my head playing dumb. I hadn't forgotten when I angrily said, I'd take it out on her mother. This Wouldn't Grace holds grudges like no other. I told Annie I came to you for tutoring. She was very happy. Told me to come find you often. Wouldn't Grace stared at my face, as if searching for something suspicious. Finally, she turned away, nothing else. Just that yesterday's test had a lot I didn't understand. I wanted before I finished. Wouldn't Grace interrupted. I'll look at it later. I have something to do now. It's not convenient for you to come in. Wouldn't Grace finished, slamming the door, locking me out. I touched my nose. Good thing I stood far, or that door would hit my head. I pouted. Thing so arrogant. Wouldn't Grace looked at the breakfast in her hand. Later she learned that breakfast shop was by the park, quite far from here. Whether the first went deliberately or bought it casually for her, this feeling made her a bit unaccustomed. The thing is, even her mother hadn't cared for her like this. The pen in my hand spun rapidly. Wouldn't Grace finish grading my test? I leaned closer, seeing it full of red marks saying, Am I improving? The college entrance exam is a week away. For 2 days, Wouldn't Grace was silent for a long time. Review the knowledge. I wrote down carefully. You're really very smart, but you missed too many lessons before, especially in literature. Memorizing entire text is impossible, so memorize the exercises I left you. Maybe you'll get lucky. You say with my grades, can I get into River City University with you? I don't care about that stuff. I have the system. If the system wants me to complete the mission smoothly, it can only obediently provide the right answers. Maybe, Wouldn't Grace said. She suddenly felt fate was ironic. Someone like me who didn't study for years, now catching up, could match someone who studied hard for 2 or 3 years. Where's the fairness in that? And am handsome, rich. This kind of boy never lacks suitors anywhere. But why do I keep clinging to her? Wouldn't Grace thought she had nothing except this face. I said every day I liked her for her beauty. But in reality, rich heiresses were prettier than her and knew how to dress better. Wouldn't Grace hated this feeling, unable to guess but still wanting to. She even wanted to crack open my head to see if my brain worked differently from normal people. Great, I held my face grinning. I said I want to be with you for life. Wouldn't Grace, because of the word lifetime, her heart nearly stopped. She shyly lowered her head. Today, oddly, she didn't mock me, muttering, You're still young. Haven't seen the world. Don't say such things. I'm serious. I said, Truer than gold. By the way, you like me, right? I felt I was probing at a dangerous boundary, but I wasn't panicked at all. Wouldn't Grace lacks love? The root cause of many villains' darkness is lack of love. Of course, except for purebred villains. You admitted to Forrest subtle I'm your girlfriend. You didn't do that before. I tugged at her shirt hem, my eyes round like a cat's. I'm right, aren't I? All day long. Who knows what's in your head? Wouldn't Grace furrowed her brows tightly. I told you I want like you. Wouldn't Grace said I'm just repaying a favor. You're good to me, I'm good to you. So if I like you, shouldn't you like me more? I curved my lips. That's what repaying a favor means. I wanted to say more, but she left first. Wouldn't Grace walked away hurriedly. not even taking her notebook. Grabbing her bag, she ran off. I laughed on the sofa, laughing until tears streamed down. During this time, I heard the favorability soaring online, stopping at 3,050, then suddenly turning to 99. I'd gotten used to the system, making errors in transmissions. It seemed reasonable, because my system assistant once said it had never passed in transmission. As for its previous host, what they did to fail the mission, I never asked. All day Wooden Grace was in a daze. The cafe owner asked her, "Did you fight with your boyfriend?" Wooden Grace froze, her ears flushing red. "Where's this boyfriend from?" "That guy who sits at the milk tea shop across the street every day, waiting for you. Yesterday I saw you two walking together, not your boyfriend." Wooden Grace glanced at the milk tea shop across the street. Behind the glass, my silhouette was no longer there. She felt an emptiness in her heart, like losing something. This feeling was strange yet intense. "No, it's not." Wooden Grace wiped the table, trying to push all thoughts out of her mind. But fate wasn't kind. The first customer Wooden Grace served this morning came with ill intentions. She was dressed in designer brands, her demeanor arrogant. Her beautiful eyes scanned the room, asking who is Wooden Grace. Her face looked ready for trouble. A few customers glanced over. Wooden Grace put down the menu, standing before the woman nearly her height. No significant difference. In Wooden Grace, "May I help you?" "So it's you." The woman sized up Wooden Grace's attire, the contempt in her eyes unmistakable. "First time meeting. I'm Effort True's sister, Effort Elegant. I'm here today for a simple reason." Effort Elegant pulled a bank card from her bag. "Leave my brother, leave River City." Wooden Grace found the scene familiar, like in those melodramatic 8 p.m. TV dramas, where the male lead's wicked mother throws money at the female lead, telling her to leave her son. Wooden Grace always thought such scenes couldn't happen in real life. Now looking back, novels and dramas stem from reality and exceed it. Wooden Grace curved her lips into a smile. "You're the one Effort True mentioned, who stole his father with a mistress, visited the house and picked up the role of sister. I've long admired you." Effort Elegant's face darkened instantly. "You're bold. Do you know what happens if you say that?" "I don't know. Nor have I thought about it." Wooden Grace gestured. "If you're not dining, please leave. Don't disturb other customers." Effort Elegant's words shifted, gently looking at her. "Give me a hand-blended iced coffee. No milk, no sugar." She pulled a 100 yuan bill from her bag. "Take it." No need for change. Wooden Grace took the money with both hands. A hand-blended iced coffee is 150 yuan. She lowered her eyes, her attitude impeccable. Effort Elegant's face flushed, slightly angry. Pulling another 100 yuan bill from her bag. "Take." "No need for change. Consider it your tip." "Thank you." Wooden Grace exchanged a 50 yuan bill from the register, truly pocketing it. Effort Elegant seeing this, her mocking expression didn't lessen. "Look at this pathetic state. 50 yuan as a tip makes her bow like a servant." Who knows how much water got into Effort True's head? Wooden Grace brought the coffee. Effort Elegant deliberately took half a step. She didn't expect Effort Elegant to be so vicious. Her hand trembled, the entire coffee spilling, splashing onto Effort Elegant. "How dare you take personal revenge?" Effort Elegant screamed as the coffee cup shattered. The cafe owner rushed out, unaware of what happened before. Seeing Effort Elegant's clothes, he quickly pulled Wooden Grace to apologize. "Sorry to the customer. Our staff hasn't been feeling well lately." "Stop talking." Effort Elegant removed her kafistan jacket, placing it on the table. The owner hurriedly picked it up. "I'll take it to be cleaned and return it to you spotless." The owner's face brightened. Before he could praise Effort Elegant, she said, "I don't wear cleaned clothes. Compensate me. This jacket is from Italy. I'll give a 20 discount. 8,000 yuan. Are you robbing me?" The owner's face darkened. He could tell it was high-end, but didn't expect it to be that expensive. Effort Elegant tapped her fingers on the table, glancing at Wooden Grace. "She has money." Wooden Grace frowned, slightly puzzled. This way of picking a fight was too childish. Effort Elegant hadn't finished speaking. I pushed past Forrest Subtle, who had just walked in, practically lunging to Wooden Grace's side. What did you just say to Wooden Grace? I arrived just in time to hear about the money, looking at the jacket in the owner's hands. Pulling Wooden Grace behind me, Effort Elegant. Who gave you the right to come here? Effort Elegant saw me, her expression changing. The earlier troublemaking demeanor gone, taking on the role of a good sister. True, you haven't been home in a while. Our parents asked me to find you. I didn't want to discuss this. I didn't even bother with her. Turning to ask Wooden Grace, what did she say to you? It's none of your business. Wooden Grace said, looking at my profile. This was my mistake. The jacket can be cleaned. Demanding 8,000 yuan in compensation. Isn't that making things difficult? Wooden Grace works here. Her attitude is excellent. The owner liked her too, so he spoke up for her. Wooden Grace frowned, glancing at the owner, finding him too talkative. 8,000 yuan. I immediately flew into a rage. Forget 8,000. Wooden Grace probably doesn't even have 800 now. Why not just rob her? I was furious. I knew Effort Elegant was deliberately causing trouble, just to lure me back home, to curry favor with her father. This scheming girl was just like her mother. Effort True. I saw Wooden Grace in distress too many times. Sometimes Wooden Grace tossed and turned, always thinking, if her life were a bit better, she wouldn't be controlled by others, nor would she be so flustered. Don't talk. This was the first time I was so harsh. The reason was simple, though I didn't know what Wooden Grace said. When meeting Effort Elegant in the original story, she truly grew to hate the Effort family more because of Effort Elegant. Even after taking over the Wooden family, sparing no effort to crush the Effort family, driving my family to death or madness. Effort Elegant was even thrown into prison to rot. So this kind of person couldn't be provoked. 8,000 yuan, right? I'll pay it. I opened my contacts, immediately transferring the money. Take the money and get lost. Don't come looking for me again. At that moment, I felt really cool. Effort Elegant narrowed her eyes at me. True, how long will you keep causing trouble? If you don't want to marry River Jade Charm, tell me. I'll help you refuse. Why not come home? Father misses you a lot. Effort Elegant sighed. I sneered. What does he miss about me? Miss how I'm not living well. Stop talking nonsense. This place doesn't welcome you. I don't want to see you either. What are you? Am I someone you're worthy of talking to like this? Effort Elegant's expression flickered between light and dark. I pulled Wooden Grace's sleeve. Come with me. As we left, I deliberately bumped Forrest Subtle's shoulder, my voice carrying no hint of apology. Maliciously, I said sorry. Didn't see the road. I knew clearly. If not for the system suddenly reminding me that a key plot point was coming, what would happen next? Forrest Subtle's family wasn't rich, but he saved a lot of red envelope money and would step in to help Wooden Grace in this situation. Wooden Grace sorely lacked love, cherishing even a bit of kindness for a long time, especially from a good-hearted character like Forrest Subtle, destined to make her feel even more favor toward him. I wouldn't allow this to happen. Why are you here? Wooden Grace, with my sudden appearance, found it too coincidental. She was very suspicious, though not to the point of thinking I staged this scene to play hero saving the beauty, but still very curious. I just felt my heart uneasy wanting to see you. I lied blatantly. When I got to the cafe, I saw Effort Elegant sitting there, so I was afraid she'd do something to you. What could she do to me? Wooden Grace scoffed. She definitely wouldn't pay the money. She now suspected. In my eyes, she was just a fragile flower, unable to withstand a bit of wind or rain. She's not a good person. My words were especially awkward. In this world, the biggest villain was Wooden Grace. Saying this in front of her was no different from telling a joke. But Wooden Grace didn't laugh. She huffed, her voice unwittingly softening. Right, she's not a good person. I don't want to work anymore. Treat me to a meal. After all, she came to make trouble because of you. You have to take responsibility, right? Wooden Grace suddenly making this request. I was both surprised and delighted. Surprised because this didn't sound like her. Delighted because I felt closer to her by a step. Even though the system reported the villain's favorability was still 99, I naively thought the system was broken. Alright, what do you want to eat? My face flushed. Wouldn't Grace had seen many boys blush in front of her, but this was the first time seeing such an expression. Truly quite interesting. She inexplicably recalled that alley that night. Me looking at her in panic, my eyes like a startled rabbit. After a long time hearing strange rumors, wouldn't Grace always thought I was reckless? My personal life chaotic. In reality, I acted very casually, deliberately teasing her with my gaze, which made her both frightened and unwittingly resentful. If her background were better, her status higher, I'd just be someone toyed with. But she wasn't. I said I liked her face, which made her toss and turn in fear many times. If I met someone prettier later, wouldn't she be discarded without mercy? Because I was very shallow. This kind of Prince love was always full of obstacles. She just wanted me to tire of this game soon, so her heart would stop wavering. I was seriously planning where to take Wooden Grace for a meal later, rambling on, saying she couldn't eat raw cold things like Japanese hot pot. Then forget it. I was still talking nonstop, saying her stomach wasn't good so avoid spicy food too. Thinking it over, I said how about we buy some ingredients and cook at home. I said actually I know how to cook a few dishes. I suddenly want to cook for you. Wooden Grace calculated then said alright. I really could cook. Having been through countless worlds, I'd taken on every trade. My skills nearly maxed out. When the dishes and a bowl of egg soup were placed on the table, Wooden Grace looked at the appetizing dishes, fragrant and enticing. Try it. I didn't expect you to actually know how to cook. Of course. I especially love making soup, especially egg soup, fragrant without being greasy. I forgot why I liked it. Wooden Grace held the bowl of soup with dried shrimp and seaweed, adjusting her posture, a familiar feeling flashing through her mind, but it passed and vanished. Next time I'm surrounded and beaten, will you show up too? Wooden Grace suddenly said this, then looked up, her eyes unreadable as she gazed at me. I noticed a problem. My heart jolted. When she said the first sentence, I was so nervous my hands shook. My voice stammered slightly, lacking confidence. What problem? You really hate Forrest Subtle, don't you? I didn't notice before. This time Wooden Grace saw me and Forrest Subtle appear at the same time, and only then recalled and noticed whenever Forrest Subtle appeared, I was always there at the right moment. My hostility toward Forrest Subtle was too obvious. I picked up a piece of food with my chopsticks, my eyes dodging. I didn't tell the truth. Wooden Grace's voice grew colder. I've seen plenty of bold female leads. That's called the protagonist's halo, but a villain's halo this strong. Wooden Grace was the first I'd known. It's me who doesn't like him. I couldn't hide it. Looking up, swearing solemnly, I don't want you to interact with him. Not at all. Because you and he won't have a good outcome. My voice was very firm. Wooden Grace raised an eyebrow, asking back, will you and I have a good outcome? Wooden Grace's voice was very light, like she was joking. I adjusted my expression, slightly afraid to speak. First, Wooden Grace would kill me, though that possibility now seemed very low. But if I completed the mission, leading Wooden Grace onto the right path, I'd leave this world. Wooden Grace's lips curved up, her smile carrying a hint of mockery. Will we? I suddenly said, it'll give you the best outcome. The college entrance exam was getting closer. Wooden Grace went to school once, deliberately bringing back news to tell me, going with me to buy study supplies. Why are you standing there dazed? Wooden Grace finished paying, turning to see me still standing in place, frowning. Haven't bought enough. I glanced at Forrest Suttle's dark expression. His friend was still angrily saying something, just too far to hear clearly. No, I hurriedly followed. As we left, Wooden Grace saw the milk tea shop across the street. Want a drink? I noticed you love milk tea. I pointed at Forrest Subtle inside, slightly incredulous. Wooden Grace's face was expressionless. I pursed my lips, smiling at her. I do. When Wooden Grace went to buy the milk tea, my soul slowly returned to my body. Just now, Forrest Subtle met Wooden Grace again, giving his signature smile to greet her. What a coincidence meeting you again. Before I could approach, I heard Wooden Grace say coldly, "I don't find meeting you anything to be happy about. Not to mention Forrest Subtle." His eyes teary. I was stunned too. Wooden Grace shoved the milk tea into my hand, then walked off without looking back. I always chased after Wooden Grace until I stood beside her. Her steps finally slowed. I adjusted my pace to hers. Our exam rooms weren't far apart. I leaned closer to chat. "You're on the 3rd floor. I'm on the 1st. After the exam, can you wait for me?" Wooden Grace looked at me, frowned, and after a while said, "All right." Before the college entrance exam, I paced back and forth in the hallway, very anxious. Only 24 hours left before my death. If I survived, the mission with Wooden Grace would be half complete, fully escaping the original plot. The world would welcome a new Wooden Grace, not sleeping at midnight pacing back and forth for what? Wooden Grace wore a long white dress, as if about to go downstairs to buy something. I startled, turning to see Wooden Grace's long soft hair, gently falling by her eyes. But those eyes were sharp. Though her demeanor was relaxed, they still made me feel an inexplicable pressure. I was nervous. Wooden Grace lowered her eyes, looking at me for a long time. "Want to go downstairs for a walk?" "All right." Wooden Grace walked side by side with me, seeing I was full of worries, never good at comforting, wanting to say a few words. Looking up, she met my eyes. "You," said in unison, slightly embarrassed. I scratched my head. "You go first." Wooden Grace didn't mind. "Hands in pockets, don't be nervous. You'll definitely have a school to attend." I heard this and felt uncomfortable. Wooden Grace was annoyed too. I mean, I knew. I looked up, smiling at her. "My grades are poor, no need to remind me, but I'll try my best to get into River City University. I want to be with you." Wooden Grace clenched her hands tightly. "Actually, River City University isn't that great. The normal university in River City is good too. Not far from River City University." "What were you going to say just now? What do you think of me as a person?" When I asked, my voice trembled. Wooden Grace pursed her lips. "Nothing special." I laughed coldly. "I forgot." Wooden Grace was number one at saying one thing and thinking another. "Nothing special, fine." I said as if she meant the opposite. I lowered my head to look at her, asking, "Are you still set on studying computer science?" "Yeah." I glanced at her, cautiously probing. "If you met someone gentler than me, more handsome than me, better at talking than me, would you like him?" I don't know, my eyelids felt heavy. A sad hum. "I want to go back." I stopped walking, turning to leave. "I don't know" means you don't like me yet. That's normal. Wooden Grace holds grudges and is petty. How could she like someone just for a bit of benefit? Wooden Grace saw my retreating figure, looking pitiful. My steps slow, as if waiting for her to chase after me. But she didn't deceive herself, afraid that chasing me would just be her own wishful thinking. Better to keep some dignity. At home, I angrily threw pillows everywhere, venting my frustration. What kind of person truly enshrank target? I lay on the bed, memorizing lines. If I failed, I'd have to do 10 low-level missions again. So annoying, my mind full of mission scenes. Those scenes I forgot quickly. Emotions faded. Many things heartbreaking. A peaceful month would be fine. I distinguished clearly. This was just a game, but I was a bit tired no matter who it was. This place wasn't my home, nor did I have a real place here. The initial joy of coming to this world, now nearly all gone, leaving only boundless despair. "Host, are you crying?" The system assistant whispered in my ear. I wiped my tears, sniffling. "Can't I be sad? Do you know how painful it is to die?" "You might not die," the assistant muttered. Now I also suspect the system is broken, clearly before the target's value was fixed. Why is it like this with her? Ooh, mentioning this makes me mad. What's the use of you, useless thing? Isn't it because you lack points? The assistant retorted. I told you at the start to do shrank missions. Stock up on points for backup. You didn't listen. All right. I deserve it. I covered my ears with the pillow. Get lost, stop talking. Wooden Grace, afraid I'd oversleep, knocked on my door early in the morning, urging me to pack my things. Don't forget the admission ticket. I was groggy, with many things I wanted to say, but in the end I didn't open my mouth. Wooden Grace rode her bike carrying me. She seemed to have gotten used to it, the hands around her waist still warm, occasionally tightening do well on the exam. I stood at the classroom door, hearing Wooden Grace speak. Seeing her about to leave, I called out loudly. When she turned back, I rushed forward, wrapping her in my arms. The sudden embrace startled Wooden Grace. I only held tighter, suppressing my emotions for a long while. He reached out to ruffle my hair. I trembled. He thought I was nervous. His voice was gentle. Don't worry. If there's a question you can't solve, skip it. Do it last. He paused, added, don't fall asleep. I hummed softly. Looking at him, I said something out of nowhere. I hope you do well. No matter what you do, I'll be happy. Will you remember me? What are you talking about? Wooden Grace furrowed his brow. Good luck. I stepped back a few paces, slipped into the classroom. Wooden Grace couldn't fathom my words for a long time. He entered his own exam room. He glanced at Forrest, settled by the window. That guy seemed eager to strike up a conversation, but his eyes darkened instantly. The exam went smoothly. The only hitch was that Wooden Grace finished his paper, always frowning tightly. He suspected I couldn't handle it. This year's questions were somewhat tough, so he thought. I left the big final question blank, but I fared quite well. Under the assistant's guidance, I deliberately skipped a few hard questions. Don't overdo it. I knew the cutoff score for River City University this year, so I always kept my performance just sufficient. If Wooden Grace still chose computer science, I'd risk everything to race alongside him. I ran fast, submitted my paper first, hurriedly dashed to the third floor. Wooden Grace was still leisurely packing up in the classroom. I glanced at Forrest settle in the hallway. The protagonist's aura was truly powerful, always running into everything. I heard someone exclaim. Wooden Grace looked toward the back door. I immediately rushed to hug him from behind. Wooden Grace's face flushed instantly. He shook himself, let go, but I didn't. Wooden Grace turned around. His voice carried a chill. I held tight, refusing to let go. The exam was exhausting. I need to recharge my energy. Wooden Grace immediately stood still. I looked at Forrest Settle, glanced over provocatively, curling my lips. I took a deep breath behind Wooden Grace. Raising my brow, Forrest Settle found it hard to breathe. Wooden Grace was ungrateful. Effort True wasn't any better either. Truly a match made in heaven. Forrest Settle lifted his head proudly and walked away. The classroom gradually emptied. Wooden Grace felt his body heat up. His face stiffened, not letting me behind him notice anything unusual. Done yet as he spoke, Wooden Grace found his voice hoarsely alarming. I saw no more danger. Pulled a chair to sit in front of him, slumped over the desk. This exam seemed tough. Wooden Grace nodded. What's for lunch? I want to eat a bento at the gate. I said. Wooden Grace touched his pocket. Then let's go eat. At the dining table, I explained how to solve problems. My eyes sparkled brightly. Wooden Grace chose his own bento, casually picked a piece of meat and placed it on my plate. Luckily, I was eagerly talking about my progress, so I didn't notice. Wooden Grace watched me put the meat in my mouth, smiling with squinted eyes. Wooden Grace lowered his gaze, saying nothing. I'm going to the restroom. I stood up, tugging at my short-sleeved shirt. As I left, Wooden Grace's expression changed. Our interactions were like a chess game. One wrong move and the whole board collapses. Is this your wallet? Hearing someone nearby, I startled, turning to see a girl's clear face. She was different from Wooden Grace's aura. Truly clean, pure, her brows and eyes gentle, making my heart pound. I looked at the wallet in her hand, nodded thank you. The girl smiled, no problem. One looked a few more times, because this girl was the female lead, Moon Charm. Pretty, isn't she? Suddenly asked. I instinctively replied pretty. After speaking, my head froze as I turned back, meeting Wooden Grace's deep dark eyes. I'm done for. Wooden Grace licked his back teeth, his voice laced with thorns. Am I interrupting? You're admiring her. Sorry, Wooden Grace said, raising his brow. Turning to leave, I panicked, hurriedly chased after. No, that's not it. I mean, never mind. Wouldn't Grace pushed me, seeing he was already at the door. I was frantic, utterly flustered. Took out my wallet. When paying, the owner said, "This table's already been settled." I froze, hurriedly chasing after. I'd have paid if I'd known. Wouldn't Grace fiercely kicked a stone on the ground. Into the sewer. Earlier, he saw I was gone too long. Worried something held me up. Just as he went over, he saw me staring dazedly at the retreating figure of a girl. He didn't see her face clearly, only saw her beautiful silhouette, wearing designer clothes. Her voice to the person beside her was pleasant. Her temperament seemed good. Some boys nearby were also secretly glancing that way. In short, Wouldn't Grace thought that girl must be very beautiful. In that moment, his chest felt like it was boiling. I followed behind, aggrieved and silent, saying nothing. Wouldn't Grace didn't speak either, until he entered the exam room. I tugged at his sleeve. Explain that person. She looked like a celebrity I know, so I no need to explain. Wouldn't Grace coldly brush my hand away, his face expressionless. I don't care about these things. Seeing his expression earlier, I thought he was jealous. Forget it. That emotion Wouldn't Grace surely didn't have. Thinking of the 99 favorability, I sneered. Just my own wishful thinking. Only 5 hours left until my death. I slumped on the desk, my mood plummeting. 5 hours dragged like years. I thought over and over. Wouldn't Grace probably had no reason to kill me, with him setting aside everything else. During this time I took care of him. Tried hard to boost favorability, did plenty. Could it be after the final exam? I nervously waited for Wouldn't Grace at the gate. When Wouldn't Grace appeared, he noticed my mood wasn't good. Thought for a moment. Decided maybe at noon he was too harsh, scaring me. He also reflected. He didn't need to get angry. I was like a kite soaring high in the sky, the string held by him. Perhaps one day it would fly away, leaving no trace for him. Wouldn't Grace gritted his teeth, feeling it was so unfair. He was like a fish on a chopping board at others' mercy. Let's go! Wouldn't Grace pushed out the bicycle. I didn't get on. Stood beside, shaking my head. Can I walk back with you? Wouldn't Grace didn't hesitate. Walked with me. Felt I had a lot to say, but always held back. Today, Wouldn't Grace actually the plot has shifted. Wouldn't Grace didn't ask me out, but being with him was no different from holding a ticking time bomb. Let me ask you. I looked at him. What are we to each other? Wouldn't Grace frowned. What do you think? I don't know. Wouldn't Grace's heart sank. Didn't I always boldly claim I was his girlfriend? Now I don't know. Up to you, Wouldn't Grace blurted out, immensely irritated. I didn't know what to say. Wouldn't Grace saw me silent, held back for a long time, turned to ask, have you had enough fun? Now you're telling me all the kindness before was just to abandon me, right? No, I panicked. My mind was a mess now. All sorts of emotions jumbled together. Wouldn't Grace's forced words made my mind even more chaotic. Up to you, Wouldn't Grace said. His chest ached sharply. My head was full of favorability alerts, rising and falling unstable, almost making my head explode. So I stood rooted in agonizing stillness. Wouldn't Grace didn't bother looking at me again. Got on the bike and rode off. He was long used to leaving me behind. I was used to watching his back. But this time, things happened unexpectedly. I couldn't understand why everything suddenly became so hard. When the favorability hit 0, I stood dazed for a long time. What does that mean? I asked. The system assistant was vague too. Suddenly 0 what the target thinks. Only Wouldn't Grace knew. He thought from now on we'd be strangers. Everything before erased, as if I'd never appeared. I couldn't figure it out. Didn't want to go home either. Wouldn't Grace didn't know why he stood by the window looking down, but never saw my shadow. Back already. He's done playing, caused enough chaos. Should return to his rightful place. Wouldn't Grace found swallowing hard. Hated himself, knowing it was a trap, still diving in. 8 in the evening. I stood at the place the original story set for my death. 10 steps away. No Wouldn't Grace here. I survived. I was a bit dazed. Counting the time, half an hour left. I blinked, not knowing whether to cry or laugh. Surviving meant the mission wasn't over. I had to stay by Wooden Grace, prevent him from turning dark. Consider it a good outcome. I turned to leave, heard a panicked cry from the alley. I froze, instinctively walked toward the alley, and so I saw a pale face. The male lead cornered by thugs, yelling, "Don't come closer. If called someone." I scratched my head. What kind of plot is this? Effort true. The pale face saw someone familiar, overjoyed, quickly shouted. The thugs turned to look at me. One suddenly called Brother Swan. Forrest Suttle's face darkened. Trembling, he said, "Did you call these people?" Effort true, I looked at the thug's face. Thought hard, didn't recognize him. "What are you guys doing?" I frowned tightly. The thug rubbed his hands. Our boss wanted to invite him to play. Who knew he'd be so uncooperative? The thug offered a cigarette. Heard Brother Swan doesn't like this guy either. How about today Brother Swan teaches him a lesson first? You guys, I hadn't finished. Someone patted my shoulder. Seeing Wooden Grace, my mind felt like it collapsed. Grace saved me. Forrest Suttle, not knowing where he found the strength, broke through the crowd, ran over. I was knocked off balance by him. Forrest Suttle ran to Wooden Grace, while I was steadied by the thug beside me. Want to die? Is Brother Swan hurt? Don't talk. Pin him down. This guy didn't you eat. The thug hadn't finished. I suddenly realized a reason. This wasn't my doing. I pushed the thug aside, cleared all ties. Forrest Suttle seemed terrified, trembling there. Wooden Grace patted his shoulder to comfort him. Softly, "I'll take you home." The thug tried to stop me, got a slap across the face from me. My aura chillingly low. Brother Swan, he couldn't believe it. I gritted my teeth. "If you don't know how to talk, shut up. Don't let me see you again." Brother Swan, you shut up. I held a bag of grilled chicken wings. Head down, dejected. Wooden Grace walked on the road. He suddenly remembered the way I looked at him just now. 1,000 threads of sorrow. What happened earlier? Wooden Grace asked. He deliberately softened his voice. Forrest Suttle stubbornly looked at him. After school, they blocked me, dragged me into the alley. I didn't provoke them at all. Really, do you think Effort True did it? Forrest Suttle said. I don't know why. Seems like he really hates me. Those people know Effort True. Besides him, I really can't think of anyone else using such tactics against me. How can he be so ruthless? He wants to ruin me. Every sentence from Forrest Suttle dripped with resentment. It wasn't him, Wooden Grace said firmly. Forrest Suttle froze, his voice hoarse. Have you forgotten what he did to you? Hayes used these tricks on so many people. Back in middle school, I heard he drove a girl into a mental hospital. Wooden Grace listened stunned, instinctively didn't believe Forrest Suttle. But I had indeed done those things. I'll call a taxi for you. Wooden Grace hailed a cab. Forrest Suttle stood still. You're not coming with me. I have things to do. They probably won't chase you anymore. Wooden Grace thought. Took 10 yuan from his pocket for the driver. Left Forrest Suttle behind, walking straight on. I hadn't gone far. Sat quietly at the alley's mouth. The thugs had already left. When I looked at Wooden Grace, my eyes lit up, then quickly dimmed. Wooden Grace saw me. His steps faltered. He stood there watching me for a long time. I raised my head, my voice soft. You're not mad at me anymore. Wooden Grace still came. 825. I took a deep breath, stood up, brushed the dust off. Wooden Grace, this wasn't my doing. I stubbornly wanted to clarify again, though I knew. Once Wooden Grace was certain, it was hard to change. Wooden Grace didn't speak, just stared at me. I know I was really awful before. I don't deny it, but am truly trying to change. As I spoke, the corners of my eyes reddened. I have no reason to target Forrest Suttle. Really? Wooden Grace took a step forward. I stepped back. You're here to avenge him, right? I lowered my head. I'm afraid of pain, Wooden Grace. Can you let me choose a less painful way to die? Are you crazy? Effort True. Wooden Grace laughed in frustration. I raised my head. Aren't I the villain? I wanted to say, aren't you here to kill me? But the words reached my lips, and I suddenly understood. I'm different from the original story. So I changed my tone. Said, didn't you say you don't need me anymore? Who said that? I smiled brightly. Wiped my face messily, asked. Earlier you left me here. All afternoon you rode off on your bike. Wouldn't Grace saw me? My mood shifted so quickly. 1 second pitiful, the next clinging to his arm. Wouldn't Grace's heart raced because of me? He looked into my eyes. The two of us stood very close. The girl's breathing was unsteady, brushing against my face. You're the one who said you were done first. What nonsense are you spouting? I jumped up, immediately cursed. Isn't this slander? I only wanted Wouldn't Grace to like me, to cling only to me. That way he wouldn't bother arguing with Forrest Subtle, fighting the male lead. How great, and you're still cursing. Wouldn't Grace grabbed my face. I was pulled until my teeth gritted. Fine, I won't talk anymore. I surrender, am just happy. Even if Wouldn't Grace hit me now, I'd still be happy. Compared to being chopped into 8 pieces, what's this? Wouldn't Grace held my head, said effort true. I'm not a toy. I never said you teased me. I thought you meant it good. Best that way after a few exchanges. Wouldn't Grace's eyes deepened? I'm a very stubborn person. Yeah, I'm sick. Wouldn't Grace pause, said. I have a severe mental illness. I'm sensitive, suspicious. My emotions are unstable. I lack a sense of security. I'm a terrible person. You said you wanted to be with me for life. I thought you meant it. Wouldn't Grace said. All our past emotions from now on are erased. Let's start over. If you don't like me, we can be strangers, or even just passing classmates. But if you keep teasing me, I'll like you. Being liked by me isn't a good thing. Per the original story, being liked by Wouldn't Grace is indeed not good. But I wasn't afraid of him. For the mission, I like you, I said. Wouldn't Grace looked at me, trying to find some clue but found none. My eyes told him. This was from my heart. At least in this moment, I truly liked him. The next second, I was pulled into his arms. Wouldn't Grace's lips came close. He lowered his eyes, kissing deeper. I almost held my breath, felt the maple leaves gently falling, the moonlight soft and tender. Back home, I held Wouldn't Grace's hand, heard the favorability stop at 10. I found it strange. Be my girlfriend, we kissed. Such a romantic moment. Yet his favorability was only 10. When would it reach 100? Wouldn't Grace had never loved anyone. But in this moment, he really wanted me to belong to him. Loving someone like this. How to put it? When I held to admission letters, holding the computer thinking, Wouldn't Grace's favorability stayed at 1 point per day. Sometimes even decimals like 01 appeared. The system was baffled too. But Wouldn't Grace was indeed the ideal girlfriend when warm. He worked part-time in the summer to earn living expenses. But every time he came back from work, always brought small things. Like the milk tea I like, the chicken wings I love to eat. You love that kid downstairs, huh? Today, Wouldn't Grace had a day off. Heard I wanted to go out. So he prepared early in the morning. Leaf Green's words made Wouldn't Grace pause. He lowered his eyes. Being noticed by his mother was normal. He hummed in acknowledgement. Then heard Leaf Green ask that kid's family is well off, right? Yeah, mom, I'm off. Leaf Green sighed as she spoke. Wouldn't Grace didn't respond, closed the door. I'd been waiting in the hallway for a long time. Seeing him come down, I was overjoyed. But Wouldn't Grace was very quiet. I tilted my head to look. Did you fight with your mom? No, you're not happy. Wouldn't Grace glanced at me. I was like a worm in his stomach, always guessing through his disguise. You're overthinking. Wouldn't Grace held my hand. Have you been in touch with your family lately? Wouldn't Grace suddenly asked. My hand holding his tightened. Said no. Lying. Wouldn't Grace pinched my knuckles, not exposing me. Actually, yes, I'm so annoyed. I got into River City University. My dad's like he woke up. Not only bought back that villa, but also urged me to come home and see. I don't want to go back. Today, Wouldn't Grace was in a bad mood. No matter how I teased, he didn't get better. Now his favorability had reached 30. Meeting Wouldn't Grace made me happy. Whether it was genuine or not, it didn't matter anymore. I swung my legs on the park bench. Wouldn't Grace suddenly spoke in a low voice. Why did you think I'd kill you? The smile on my face vanished. I was a bit panicked. I came up with this idea myself. Keep reminding him had abandoned the thought. Didn't expect him to ask now. Really, but why did he suddenly ask this? I instinctively stepped back, afraid he'd get the urge to kill again. That time I read some news. I scratched my head lying, then had a nightmare. Dreamed you killed me, chopped me into 8 pieces. Because the dream was too vivid, I was afraid it'd come true. Wouldn't Grace didn't speak. I held the cup out to him try it. It's sweet. Wouldn't Grace looked at me, had long seen through my thoughts. Under my expectant gaze he took a sip. It was actually very sour. He frowned. Wouldn't Grace felt by my side. He always forgot time. In a blink it was the first day at River City University. Wouldn't Grace followed me to the dorm. Opened the door if you guys were already inside. Seeing Wouldn't Grace they couldn't help but stare. He frowned. Sleep here, I nodded obediently. Wouldn't Grace remembered how messy my house was. In his eyes I was a clumsy mess. So he got bedding from the dorm office. Helped me make the bed. Arranged my luggage. He'll check the other dorm first. Watching him bustle about face flushed, heart racing. Though I'd conquered many targets. Someone this devoted. Wouldn't Grace was the first. No wonder Forrest Subtle fell for him. Didn't want to let go of Wouldn't Grace. Who could resist? As Wouldn't Grace left, my roommate seized the chance to ask, "Is that your sister?" "My girlfriend," I said, very proud. Roommates looked at me, eyes full of admiration. "She's at this school too. What's she studying?" "Same major as me. I'm studying computer science." Only then did I recall dorm bonding. Smiled, "Hey everyone. I'm effort true." But I wasn't happy for long. The dorm door was pushed open again. I faced Forrest Subtle at the door. Our eyes met. Sparks flying. Forrest Subtle stiffened. Frown, stepped back to check the room number. Then doubting life walked in. Great, walking right into the trap. Let's see how he stirs things up. I smiled, full of schemes. What a coincidence. "You two know each other?" a guy asked. Forrest Subtle just wanted to escape. What's scarier than living with a little demon? "We know each other." I nodded, feigning innocence. Curled my lips. Subtle's super kind. "In the future, if you need anything, ask him." Back at our old school, he was a discipline committee member. Forrest Subtle was so angry he trembled. "You're praising me." But every word felt like mockery. Everyone keep chatting. Before leaving, I patted his shoulder. "I'm off to find my girlfriend." When Wouldn't Grace arrived, the dorm was full. Only the last bed remained. He was making the bed. I poked my head in to look around. Some girls boldly asked, "Handsome, who are you looking for?" Wouldn't Grace glanced over. Frowned, "What are you doing here?" Wouldn't Grace stopped making the bed. Jumped down, grabbed my hand. I held a few cans of cola, smiled at his roommates. "First time meeting. I'm Wouldn't Grace's boyfriend. These are for you all to drink." Thanks. "Thank you, big bro." Wouldn't Grace didn't find these words joyful. He pulled me. Seeing the door move, he quickly pulled me close. Outside, 3 girls walked in. I looked at the girl who entered, adjusted my posture. Moon Charm, what a coincidence. Moon Charm probably arrived early. Already familiar with everyone in the room. Everyone immediately called Sister Charm. "Your boyfriend brought cola." Moon Charm looked over. Smiled, "It's you." Wouldn't Grace tightened his grip. Moon Charm pointed at herself. "Do you remember me? The one who picked up your wallet at the bento shop?" I obviously knew. "Thank you." I smiled back at Moon Charm. Wouldn't Grace looked at Moon Charm for a long time. Only then, recalling what happened, immediately pulled me outside. "Aren't you hungry? It'll take you to eat." I was dragged off, utterly confused. Greeted his roommates. 2 steps for every 3 following behind. Wouldn't Grace was very annoyed. That girl was both rich and pretty. Looking at her demeanor, you could tell she was very attractive to boys. Wouldn't Grace pulled me to the hallway. Came close, bit me. Lingered, reluctant to leave. "What is that girl pretty?" "Not as pretty as you." I'd learned my lesson. Now I was sure Wouldn't Grace was jealous. "Have you checked the class assignments?" Wouldn't Grace changed the topic. I just remembered, took out my phone. Wouldn't Grace working part-time bought a phone too, but he wasn't used to using it. Also heard his roommates say, "Don't look, we're not in the same class." Wouldn't Grace felt annoyed. I insisted on checking. When I finished, I was instantly deflated. What's going on? I tried so hard to get into this school. Still not in the same class as Wouldn't Grace. Falling back into the original story's love triangle. I'm out of it. The two classes have different schedules. I'm in the same dorm as Forrest Settle, I said unexpectedly. Wooden Grace raised his eyelids hummed. I pulled him. I'll keep an eye on him. Why are you watching him? The last incident with Forrest Settle. Wooden Grace didn't ask in detail. He keeps hovering around you. I don't like it. I clenched my fist tightly. If I find out you two are in contact, he's done for. Wooden Grace chuckled softly. He definitely wants to steal my wall. I said, you can't get close to that bad girl either. Got it? Wooden Grace loved seeing me like this. Like this. Made him feel I cared deeply, his heart full of me good. Wooden Grace ruffled my hair. High school and college are different. After each day of military training, a bunch of immature girls, chattering in the dorm, no books to read. Relaxing Wooden Grace was especially unaccustomed. He thought he should find a part-time job to stay busy. Hey, Wooden Grace, tell us about your boyfriend. How'd you meet your boyfriend? High school classmates, so nice. Not that great. Wooden Grace thought to himself, if I hadn't changed a bit, I'd probably hate this person to death. But now he couldn't quite let go of me. Do you fight? Who's that? Wooden Grace glanced over. Mooncharm beside him said, come on. Why pry into someone's private matters? I'm just reminding Sister Charm. Guys in college go wild. My boyfriend and I broke up right after graduation. So annoying. Wooden Grace frowned. Thought for a moment to understand what that meant. His face darkened. In the dorm, I covered my ears, not listening. The male lead's aura was shining bright. I didn't know what Forrest Settle said behind my back. I felt the distance from my roommates. I didn't want to mingle with them. Just needed to keep an eye on Forrest Settle and Wooden Grace. How'd you meet your girlfriend? A roommate asked with some implication. I raised my brow. She loves me. I just went along. Really? The guys laughed. I propped my forehead. What else? I glanced at Forrest Settle. Ask him. Back then he caught me with my girlfriend. Said I forced her to be my girlfriend. Then my girlfriend said what? Forrest Settle didn't want to talk. All eyes turned to him. I curled my lips. My girlfriend. Said he and she aren't close. Told him to stop clinging to her. What nonsense are you saying? Forrest Settle instantly flared up. Am I talking nonsense? I sat up straight. Who's the one always lingering around my girlfriend? Mouthful of sweet talk. I'm in love with her. Why does it sound so bad coming from you? Roommates looked at each other, unsure what to say. Effort true, don't go too far. Forrest Settle's eyes reddened. Stood up. Who's the one always bullying others? Ask yourself how many times you hit Wooden Grace. Shouldn't I suspect you? Who knows if those thugs during the exam were called by you? You're truly despicable. Relying on your family's money. Causing trouble all day. Am I wrong? My eyes had gone cold. I snorted. Sneered. So what if I hit her? She still likes me. Unlike you trying so hard to please and still getting rejected. And don't slander me. Those thugs have nothing to do with me. You should think. Maybe it's karma for some unpaid debt. Forrest Settle opened his mouth to retort. I touched my lips enough. Stop talking more and I'll get annoyed. I'm not a good person. After arguing with Forrest Settle in the dorm, roommates realized I wasn't any good either. Forrest Settle wasn't much better. Knowing someone has a boyfriend and still diving in. But that didn't mean anything. I didn't care about gossip. I only cared about Wooden Grace's thoughts. But Forrest Settle wasn't as at ease. From childhood to now had always been outstanding. Adored wherever he went. Getting shut down by me a few times was one thing. But being blamed by me in reverse. Clearly my fault. Why couldn't Settle fit in at school? Mooncharm saw he was full of worries. His soul adrift, her voice incredibly gentle. Are you being bullied at school? No! Forrest Settle shook his head. I'm just not happy. Tell me about it. Mooncharm and Forrest Settle grew up together. Childhood sweethearts. Due to family background, she matured faster. Took care of Forrest Settle more. In high school, she attended an elite school in River City, while Forrest Settle studied at Righteous Middle School, rarely meeting again in college. In her eyes, Forrest Settle was the kind boy from childhood. If there was a flaw, it was being too kind. Forrest Settle gripped his chopsticks tightly. His face darkened. Mooncharm rarely frowned. Seeing him like this, her aura grew colder. What's going on? Yeah, Mooncharm quickly took a tissue from her bag, handed it over Sister Charm. Am I really that unlikable? Who said that? Mooncharm quickly asked. Is it that you don't get along with your roommate? I don't want to. Forrest Subtle felt deeply wronged. No matter how carefree his personality, he still noticed the distance in his roommate's eyes. Sometimes it was obvious, standing at the door hearing them talk lively. But when he entered, their voices fell silent. Before I knew, a guy really didn't like me. Kept saying I was trying to steal his girlfriend. Now he's in my dorm, bad-mouthing me to the roommates. Now no one in the room pays attention to me. Forrest Subtle grew more upset as he spoke. Something like that happened. Mooncharm instantly got angry. Forrest Subtle was kind, but that didn't mean anyone could bully him. What's his name? I'll talk to him. Mooncharm couldn't sit still, pulled Forrest Subtle along. Forrest Subtle sniffled, held her hand. Sister, I don't want trouble. Let them talk. I'm fine. Fine, don't you know how scary rumors are? Mooncharm sneered. So young and already smearing twisting facts. He doesn't like to talk, huh? Let's see what he says to my face. I wandered around the cafeteria. Wouldn't Grace noticed my gaze? I'm someone whose thoughts show on my face. Wouldn't Grace said don't want to eat anything or go to another cafeteria. I pouted. This cafeteria is closest to the dorm. Half a day of military training. I'm exhausted to death. Fine, I didn't want to be sloppy. Turned to Wooden Grace. I heard there's a yogurt place nearby that's really good. I want before I finished. Saw over there a golden couple standing together. Forrest Subtle and Mooncharm. In the original story, they hadn't reached the ambiguous stage yet, though it looked unclear. In reality, neither had thought that far. Because of Wooden Grace's appearance, constantly currying favor with the male lead, it sparked Mooncharm's possessive desire, making her realize her true feelings. Wooden Grace saw me not moving, turned puzzled and asked, didn't you want to eat yogurt? Hey, I jetted my chin. Wooden Grace followed my gaze, slightly confused. What that kid Subtle? With the girl beside him, they look good together. I crossed my arms sighing. Wooden Grace noticed Mooncharm beside him, instinctively grabbed my hand, said what's so great about them to look at? Hey Grace! Mooncharm suddenly met Wooden Grace's eyes, took big steps forward. Something up. Wooden Grace's face didn't change. I provocatively glanced at Forrest Subtle, quietly interlaced my fingers with Wooden Grace's. A strong possessive desire. Wooden Grace curled his lips. Only when seeing Forrest Subtle did I cling like that. Which dorm is your boyfriend in? Wooden Grace pursed his lips. Probably the same dorm as your boyfriend. That was also a reminder to me. Though beautiful, he was taken. Mooncharm froze. Looked at Forrest Subtle, instantly understood. No, what boyfriend? Hayes, my little brother. I heard Hayes being bullied in the dorm. Want to seek justice for him. It just so happens your boyfriend's in the same dorm. Seek justice? I laughed. Tell me, who's bullying him? I'm good at seeking justice. Forrest Suttle's shoulders visibly trembled. Mooncharm's gaze landed on me, carrying a bit of surprise. Don't make trouble, Wooden Grace softly scolded. Who doesn't know how I was in high school? My temper was awful. Now I've barely restrained myself. Speak, little Subtle. With our relationship, I won't let anyone bully you. I raised my brow, smiling cheerfully. Sister Charm, let's go. Forrest Subtle tugged at Mooncharm's sleeve. He kept his head down. Mooncharm was determined to seek justice for Forrest Subtle. Frowned. If you're in the same dorm, then please tell me, how the people in your dorm? Badmouth Subtle. Alright, Suttle's a kind person. Easily bullied. Kind, very kind. I strongly agreed with that. But sometimes being too kind is a crime. I don't know about that. I feigned ignorance. I think our dorm's atmosphere is pretty harmonious. I don't know why little Subtle thinks someone's bad-mouthing him behind his back. Maybe you did something shady, and it got dug up. You're talking nonsense. Effort. True, isn't it all your fault? What are you pretending for? After I said a bunch, Forrest Subtle finally couldn't take it. His body trembled with anger. Tell your sister what's going on. Mooncharm saw him like that, panicked. Wouldn't Grace frown at me, saw my calm demeanor. I still carrying arrogance. Thought for a moment pulled me back. Forest Subtle wouldn't speak, just dragged Mooncharm away. I pouted, finally a bit of the villainous vibe. Your name's Effort True Right. I'm talking to you. Look at the female lead. In this situation, still keeping her cool. Her face carried a smile, though that smile wasn't very pretty. No need sister charm. I stepped past Wooden Grace, waved goodbye. A few people sat in the quiet milk tea shop. I had no sense of doing anything wrong. Sipping milk tea through a straw, drinking like a cat. Are you Brother Swan? Wooden Grace, while they were ordering, leaned close to my ear, asked softly. What? I widened my eyes, feigning innocence. Wooden Grace was almost fooled by me. Tapped my forehead. When I said I was in the same dorm as Forest Subtle, he knew it wouldn't be good. Sure enough, in a few days I made someone cry. I thought for a moment, frowned, muttered, this isn't my fault. Mooncharm had Forest Subtle sit inside, while she sat beside him, across from me. Why do you keep targeting Forest Subtle? Mooncharm said, her voice a bit cold. I thought no matter how overbearing, I couldn't compare to the person beside me. I'm the villain. What's there to fear? I wiped my mouth, smiled arrogantly. I like it that way. Mooncharm's brows instantly tightened. Earlier, Forest Subtle briefly told her. Turns out I was the character in that messy love story. This fact shocked Mooncharm too much. And the host, cheers to you all. Well, be roommates for 3 years. Let's wipe the slate clean. If we can't be good friends, at least don't fight, alright? The 3 words alright were strangely gentle, like pleading, unimaginably soft. Wooden Grace looked at Mooncharm, took a deep breath. I acted calm before her words, even pushed the milk tea to Wooden Grace. I can't drink anymore. Then I clasped my hands. Seriously, I accept your proposal, but don't touch my girlfriend. The last sentence was for Forest Subtle, carrying a gritted-teeth tone. Mooncharm sensed something else in my words, but didn't ask. Gratefully looked at me. Thank you for giving me face. I'm heading back to the dorm to rest. I leaned close, hugged Wooden Grace, kissed his cheek. I didn't. After I left, Forest Subtle added, I never touched his girlfriend. He's talking nonsense. Mooncharm sighed, enough. Stop making a fuss. Didn't you say you'd seek justice for me? Why side with Effort True? What's so great about him? You don't know. Mooncharm interrupted. Everyone takes a step back. There's nothing wrong with that. Besides, didn't you start it? If he caused trouble for no reason, I definitely wouldn't go easy. When Mooncharm returned to the dorm, saw Wooden Grace in the bathroom. She stood at the door, thought for a moment. Said today's mess wasn't great. Your boyfriend's not mad, right? Why would he be mad? I've never been at a disadvantage. Forest Subtle's nothing. Wooden Grace was very confident. That's good. Tonight I'm planning to treat the whole dorm to drinks. Bring your boyfriend along. I'll bring Subtle. By then, 1 drink to settle grudges. Wooden Grace frowned. No way, he doesn't drink. Wooden Grace added, he also doesn't like places with Forest Subtle. What's going on? Mooncharm grew curious. She'd asked Subtle in detail. Thought it over, no big grudges. Wooden Grace shook his head. I'm not sure either. He seems to really target Forest Subtle. Probably messed up today. Please apologize to Subtle for me. I'm not going anywhere tonight. No way. Mooncharm was good-natured, tactful. Our dorm only has a few people. Going out without inviting some guys, how's that fair? Wooden Grace didn't have much money, but understood this was necessary for bonding. If he refused now, it'd seem like disrespect. Finally nodded. Hearing Wooden Grace was going drinking, I patted his shirt. Drink less. No Forest Subtle, right? I suddenly asked. Wooden Grace laughed. What's with your huge grudge? Always subtle this, subtle that. I'm not. I realized I was too fixated on him. No choice. He's got the male lead's aura. How could I not be cautious? No, just dorm friends. Wooden Grace pulled me. Let's go. When you're back, buy me a box of popcorn. I hugged Wooden Grace back. Secretly slipped 500 yuan into his pocket. Wooden Grace kissed my cheek. All right. Said no guys. Wooden Grace arrived at the private room in the restaurant. Saw Forest Subtle. His face instantly soured. Mooncharm quickly stepped in. Subtle didn't want to go back to the dorm. No friends here either. Wood and Grace sat down heavily. It's fine, it's fine. Roommates didn't know the tangled mess. Saw Mooncharm bring a guy, practically thanking her profusely. How could they blame her? Forrest Subtle was indeed likable. Halfway through the meal, he was already chummy with the roommates, laughing and joking lively. Wood and Grace sat in the corner, isolated from the merriment. At the end of the meal, the group got bored and wanted to play Truth or Dare. Wood and Grace couldn't just drop his chopsticks and leave. Had to grit his teeth and play on. Right in the first round, Wood and Grace was chosen. He picked Dare in his awkwardness. Was told to call his boyfriend. Say break up. See his reaction. Wood and Grace looked at the questioner. Mooncharm saw the atmosphere chill. Quickly said don't. They worked hard to be together. Why's there trouble? Wood and Grace picked up the glass of white liquor on the table, filled it up, tilted his head back and drank it dry. The next round, Wood and Grace didn't dare be reckless, though I spoiled him a lot, having never loved. Wood and Grace heard love was vibrant. Love was calm like water. Wood and Grace felt love was walking on thin ice. He was always caught in a knot, but also understood. Beneath the calm were surging undercurrents. Wood and Grace drank hurriedly. When the party ended, his head was already spinning. The others were also drunk out of their minds. Forrest Subtle stood by him for a while, reached out to support Wood and Grace. They're this drunk. The dorm's probably locked by now. Mooncharm booked for hotel rooms. The group staggered to the hotel. Mooncharm alone couldn't handle 7 people. Saw Forrest Subtle helping someone into the car. Instructed watch Wood and Grace carefully. Check in at the hotel under my name. Forrest Subtle and Wood and Grace sat in the back seat. The girl seemed drunk, very uncomfortable. Her neck arched beautifully. Their hands touched, passing warmth. Wood and Grace was strikingly beautiful. He casually brushed his hair, revealing a clean white forehead. His drunken eyes looked at the man beside him, hesitated for a moment. Unsure, called Forrest Subtle. Hear his voice clear and pleasant. Forrest Suttle's heart raced hearing it. Quickly responded. Wood and Grace's brows sharpened. His strength suddenly surged. Driver stopped the car. The driver hurriedly pulled over. Afraid head vomit in the car. What are you doing? Feeling bad. Wood and Grace didn't speak. Got out intending to walk. Where to Forrest Subtle grabbed his hand, but was shaken off Wood and Grace. Forrest Subtle stomped in frustration. You're drunk. Mooncharm booked the hotel. It'll take you to rest. No need. Wood and Grace's head ached like it would split. Staggering along the road, the driver called to the 2 in the back. Forrest Subtle looked, paid the fare, told the driver to go, then chased after. Wood and Grace took out his phone. 10 o'clock. The dorm was locked. Probably couldn't buy popcorn for effort. True. You don't want to be with me. Forrest Subtle, after all his actions, finally realized. He couldn't believe it. Wood and Grace stood at the corner, turned eyes piercing deeply into him, nodded firmly. Why? I saved you so many times before. Wood and Grace looked for a long time, rubbed his forehead, apologized. Effort, True's girlfriend. He doesn't like Forrest Subtle got into a spat. Just because of that. Yes, because of him. Everyone said Wood and Grace was cold, uncaring, rigid. Forrest Subtle had never been jealous of anyone, but now he was intensely jealous of me. Why? What did he do to make Wood and Grace defend him like that? Forrest Subtle muttered behind. Are you sick, Wood and Grace? He treats you like that and you still like him. Wood and Grace stiffened. Forrest Subtle blurted out. You might not even like effort. True. I knew him before. He's just playing around. You and he won't have a good ending. We will. Wood and Grace said firmly. Well, have a good ending. I told you, don't you know? He's engaged to River Jade Charm. Forrest Subtle didn't want to say it, but couldn't bear to see Wood and Grace deceived. He took a deep breath. Knew talking behind someone's back wasn't good. Said first, I'm saying this for your sake. He and River Jade Charm got engaged in middle school. Everyone in the business circle knows. He's just playing with you. Really? Wood and Grace's eyes flared. He stepped closer to Forrest Subtle, his gaze deep. Shut up. I'm not lying. Forrest Subtle gritted his teeth. Their families have already settled it. waiting for River Jade Charm to return from abroad. They'll get married. My aunt is best friends with River Jade Charm's mom, so I know. Wooden Grace's fist cracked. Forest Subtle saw him unmoving for a long time, reached to pull him. Wooden Grace quietly narrowed his eyes. Stepped back. You don't need to remind me of this. Wooden Grace's voice was hoarse. He curled his lips. Maybe drunk or unwilling. He heard his own voice say, he wants to be mine. Can only be mine. River Jade Charm or Moon Charm. It was Effort True who provoked him first. Wooden Grace looked around. Didn't see my shadow. He shook his head. Walked along the road, not knowing where to go, nor who to wait for. Forest Subtle called his name from behind. Wooden Grace didn't turn back. He followed like a tail. Inexplicably made Wooden Grace think of me. He sighed, felt he was going mad, because the next second, he saw me in pajamas, face full of disbelief stepping out of a taxi, eyes fixed on him. In that moment, Wooden Grace felt his heart overflow. Late, but I still came. I was lying in bed. Just fell asleep when the system blared an alarm. Said the storyline had changed. Now the male lead met the target. Hearing this, I was stunned. Wooden Grace even knew how to deceive. Since when did they get so close? No way! I climbed down from the second-floor bathroom window, clothes unchanged, took a taxi straight to the system's guided spot.